Alright, I do believe we are live. How's everyone doing? Let me just wait for it to show up on the phone and then we're ready. By the way, before I begin, let me just show you guys something. I mean, I knew you could find wallpapers, but there is a lot of them I just realized. Some of them I actually haven't seen. Alright, so I do believe we are live. How's everyone doing? Let me actually mute the stream. There we go. Alright, so let's go. Here it is, before we go into the theory. By the way, we'll be watching Ashikai today. She's a great lore person. If you're into Genshin theories and everything, check out her channel. There's a lot of stuff. We'll be watching the theory here. There's a bit of a theory about Hexenzirkel, the god of time, and the sinner. So we'll be watching that. I'll be giving my thoughts on it, and yeah. This was a suggestion, so yeah, here we go. But before that, I was just checking through wallpapers because the one I had, if I actually hide this here, you guys will see. This is like the one I have right now, and this was the one I had before. If I hide this too, this is the one I had one. It's quite outdated. I know it's about Genshin. I don't know if there's any 3.31. I think there are, but they don't include that many characters. But yeah, if you want Onkai wallpapers, you just go over here. This is the website. I don't know if it works on the phone, but I know there's a lot of phone wallpapers too. And if you want PC wallpaper, well, just look at this. This is heaven. There's a lot more than I even imagined. Like, let me show you a few Elysian ones. Like this one. I don't think I've seen this one anywhere. So yeah, there's a lot of wallpapers that you won't see anywhere else that are on this website. This one, we knew about this. That was the one they used actually on one of the stigmatas, where we actually have it as a wallpaper. You got for everything, like even Aponia you got with the statue here. I think that's also a stigmata, but they made it into a wallpaper. There's a whole lot more. Like this one, I don't think I had seen this one before. There's a lot. So yeah, if you guys do want PC wallpapers, there you are. Without further ado though, let's watch this theory and see what it's about. Hexenzirkel, it's one thing we don't know much about. So I'm curious to see thoughts on this. We actually, yesterday we checked out a few collect miscellaneous, including Dory's, and we finally got some information on it, though it was very, very brief information. Let's just see what this is.
If you play Genshin, you've probably heard this phrase a lot. I mean, a lot. This is the first thing Catherine will say to you anytime you try to talk to her, which is, again, a lot, since you need to talk to her to claim your date.
Let me... Starro music is good, but we're watching the theory now.
Primos and to start a lot of quests and just a lot, okay? And you know, after 2 years of hearing this phrase over and over and over again, and after going through Samira's Archon quests, I finally realized that it might actually be more than just a catchy Latin slogan. It might be a hint at one of Teyvat's greatest secrets. But to explain what I mean by that, we're going to have to cover a lot of ground, including the Irminsul, Dainsleif, ley lines, and the Abyss Order, the infamous Unreconciled Stars event, and the barely touched upon Hexenzirkel, although not necessarily in that order. If you're intrigued, then stick around, because this is one theory video that you will not want to miss.
I'm intrigued about Dane already.
But before we get started on the theory itself, I need to remind you of a couple of small things, little ones. First, this video assumes that you have completed the quests listed on screen. These ones right here. If you haven't done so, then save this video for later. If you have completed these quests, well, then that's great. Keep watching. But remember to check the pin.
Is that the 3.2? Sorry, 3.1 Desert world quest? I actually haven't completed it. To be honest, I might not complete it in a while, and it's not an Archon or a story quest, so I don't mind.
Comment when the video is over, just in case there are any little corrections or additional bits of information that got missed when I was making this. As per usual, all citations and links for further reading and watching if there are videos will be in the description
I need to do the Genshin world quests.
Also, I need to inform you all that this
when
video
we're
is
back,
I'm
definitely going to be doing them.
3. I know, but this video in particular will be covering the Hexenzirkel and Forbidden Knowledge. The next will be looking at gods, Seelies, and Descenders, and the final part will be about the god of time. Now, originally, all 3 parts were just one complete theory, but I thought it was a lot easier to digest and edit
1 hour
if I split it into 3 more or less self-contained videos that tie into each other instead. Now, you don't have to watch all 3, so don't get overwhelmed, but you will get the most value out of these 3 theories if you watch them all together. Alright then, procrastinators, this is your last chance to pause the video if you don't want any spoilers, because we're getting started right now.
I haven't watched
Like
Gold
most
Slumber,
things
but who
in
cares?
Genshin, this theory begins with the Adventurers Guild and its slogan, Ad Astra Abyssosk, to the stars and the abyss.
Yes,
Considering
the
we are
abyss.
so deeply intertwined with the Adventurers Guild, it's kind of weird that we know so very little about it. For example, who runs it, and for what purpose? Well, I would like to propose the idea, out of complete nowhere and with no context, that the Adventurers Guild might have been founded by none other than the Hexenzirkel. Bold claim, I know, but stick with me. For those of you who don't know, Hexenzirkel is German for Hexenzirkel, which is basically just a witch's coven. This Hexenzirkel in particular has potentially 5 members, 2 of whom you are definitely familiar with. Mona and Alice.
Yes.
Now, Mona has no known affiliation with the Adventurers Guild, but Alice is the author of the Teyvat travel
Mona's
guide, which
master?
is sponsored
Or is Mona
by
also
the Guild.
part of it?
And by no other reason but association, the remaining Hexenzirkel members should be Mona's teacher, the alchemist Rhinedottir, and the
just Mona
mysterious
Caesar?
Skirk. Notice I did not include Lisa here because...
Why Skirk? Oh, interesting. Actually, I think so, because, I mean, if Mona's affiliated with Mona's teacher, she's probably part of it. Rhinedottir, I know, knows Alice extremely well, and is also connected to Albedo. Skirk, is there some info I'm missing?
She specifically states that she is not part of this particular Hexenzirkel, which doesn't mean that she couldn't be part of another one, but that's another thing altogether. Now, note that these 3 I listed here are speculated and not confirmed, but we will tell the alchemist Rhinedottir and the mysterious Skirk. Notice I did not include Lisa here because she specifically states that she is not part of this particular Hexenzirkel, which doesn't mean that she couldn't be part of another one, but that's another thing altogether. Now, note that these 3 I listed here are speculated and not confirmed, but we will talk about each of them as we go along to explain why I'm listing them here and why I'm making this claim. But the real question here is, why would a group of witches be responsible for founding an Adventurers Guild? Well, let's take a look at the guild. The Adventurers Guild has 2 main objectives: explore the world of Teyvat and gather information on the world of Teyvat.
Which,
now, according to Lisa, the only real known objective of the Hexenzirkel is the exploration of Irminsul and tea parties, which I don't think are relevant.
Exploration
Which is a little weird, since Mona and her teacher study the stars, not the tree, while Alice travels willy-nilly recording local history, and Rhinedottir... Well, actually, Rhinedottir seems to be actively studying Irminsul, so that one checks out. Her studying the Irminsul is actually one of
oh yeah, back when Albedo. I thought it was right now, because we don't know where she is right now. But yeah, she was actually studying the truth of this world.
The reasons why I think she's part of this Hexenzirkel, but I digress. Now, Rhinedottir is the master and creator and teacher of Albedo, and they traveled together to study the insides of domains which contain young petrified Irminsul trees. He also says that he's seen larger Irminsul that were several miles tall, deep underground with giant spiders at their roots. Now, please note that the Irminsul
Please don't make me do ever one of those domains, thank you.
The Sumeru Archon
I don't want to see giant spiders.
Its roots stretch into the abyss, meaning we now have 2 witches studying the stars and at least 1 studying the abyss. All right? And then we have Alice, who's out there living the life of an adventurer and somewhere in the middle. So, you know, to the stars and the abyss, ad astra abyssosk indeed. Now, while all these interests that these witches have seem to have little in common, each witch seems to be trying to gather as much information as possible through whatever means suit them best. Mona and her teacher are gathering information about the future through astrology. Alice is documenting the world at present, and Rhinedottir is studying the past, if the name of her primordial human project is anything to go by, anyway. Thinking about it like that, it makes a little bit more sense why the Hexenzirkel would want to study Irminsul in particular. That tree is basically a living record of the entire world with the power to alter not just the physical realm, but also the minds and memories of everyone who lives within its reach, which is basically the entirety of Teyvat. Supposedly, the only thing it has no power over are the beings known as Descenders, and the Traveler is one of them. And of course, to top it all off, each witch's field of research is closely related to the functions of Irminsul. So let's take a quick look at those. As I already mentioned, Irminsul is an underground, upside-down tree that can maintain a connection to pieces of itself even when they have been cut off or otherwise not physically connected. It functions somewhat like a server for all the data in the world, collecting said data and elemental energy from all across Teyvat through means of its roots, which we know as ley lines. Some ley lines are connected to smaller versions of the Irminsul that grow on Teyvat's surface, notably Inazuma's sacred sakura and Dragonspine's frost-bearing tree, as well as the petrified trees found deep within domains, although we don't actually know where.
I just had a thought, hold up. What if with the memory thingies, they made kind of like an Elysian Rumble with Archon stories? Like, leyline memories of the Archon War? Oh god, that would be so sick. Please? Maybe? Anyways, continuing.
Space those are, so I don't know if I should count them. But the petrified trees are kind of interesting because they will actually give you gifts in the form of crystallized memories, artifacts, in exchange for resin, which the traveler magically generates somehow, which is weird because they're technically not from this world.
I don't think that part is
kind of strange why they would have this function, or maybe it's Paimon's function.
The artifacts
I don't
make
know.
sense,
I'm sorry,
but
I'm distracted.
the resin,
the recorded memory aspect of Irminsul is similar to Alice's pursuit of practical history through her own observations, but memories aren't the only thing Irminsul contains. It also contains vast amounts of elemental energy, which is used in alchemy. That's Rhinedottir's field of study. So both of these fields of study seem to be very obviously related to what Irminsul does, but astrology seems to be completely unrelated, until you realize it isn't. See, way back in version 1.1, we got an event called Unreconciled Stars, one of the most important events in the entirety of Genshin, and it should have been an Archon quest. I'm gonna be salty about it forever, but sorry. In this quest, meteors fell from the sky and put everyone that came into contact with them into a deep sleep. Each person who fell asleep had the exact same dream that they couldn't wake up from. After tracking down these meteors with Mona, we discovered that it...
Wait, dream? Wait, could it actually be related to Irminsul now?
wasn't just a rock that the meteor was, but a literal star from a real person's constellation. This is something that confuses Mona because the stars that make up constellations should be burning balls of gas light years away. It should be actually impossible for them to fall like this, and in this form. Later on in this quest, Scaramouche concludes that both the stars and the sky are a lie, something that Mona doesn't completely dismiss because her teacher, who's in the Hexenzirkel, told her to be wary of the false sky. And in Chapter 3, Act 5, Dottore reiterates this notion that the sky is indeed
I think it's Celestia
false.
Manipulating.
Specifically, he says that not only are the skies fake, but that this fact is actually a secret hidden by Irminsul concerning the truth of this world. The truth of this world, by the way, is the one thing that Rhinedottir had tasked Albedo with discovering before she left him in Mondstadt. Now, there are a bunch of references to something called a firmament littered throughout the entire game. There's the Solar Pearl, the Spectres, Prototype Amber, Vermilion Hereafter, just to name a few. Trust me, there's like so many references. And while the term firmament can be used to describe the sky itself, in the Old Testament, it's actually supposed to be a solid dome that prevents the waters of the cosmic ocean from, falling in and flooding the whole world. And Genshin's higher level world building is actually based on Abrahamic theology, so that's why I'm referencing that in particular. But anyway, let's assume for the time being that separating. The sky is fake, that it is.
Now that I think about it, Scaramouche said that Piero said that the travelers only came to this world because the heavens responded to the summoning. So that kind of explains why, even if the sky was fake and there was actually no way to get in and out of the world, the travelers couldn't get in. Not because they physically entered, but because, the heavens, the Celestia, allowed it. So maybe that was a passage, and maybe when they were getting close, they got teleported or something. It's not like they physically entered. Maybe this firmament thing, I think, might actually be the case. We'll see.
Solid like it is in biblical cosmology. How then would a star pass through a solid structure? Easy. It doesn't. It has to be inside the structure or a part of the structure. Going back to the specters for a bit, their description talks about a giant tree in the sky, which is odd because we only have a giant tree underground. And it says that they resemble the fruit of this tree. But you know what else they look
Neo, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well.
Which are basically the fruit of the Akasha and contain memory data. The Akasha was an invention of the Dendro Archon, and its sole purpose was to collect true knowledge from the people in the form of dreams. And remember, the meteor and unreconciled stars put everyone into a dream they couldn't wake up from. Dreams are the dominion of the god of wisdom, and it seems reasonable to assume that an Archon that was literally crafted from the branches of this world tree would design her invention in the likeness of Irminsul itself. And then she named it Akasha, which means sky in Sanskrit.
sky?
So if the Akasha is like a miniature Irminsul, then it stands to reason that the Irminsul also has knowledge capsules.
Wait.
Or perhaps we should...
What if the tree in the sky that was mentioned in the Spectre story was really just the stars? Kind of like saying the fake stars, so-called meteors, were kind of working like the Irminsul tree in a way, but the future instead of the past? Anyways,
to call them ley line fruit, because that's what they're called in Energy Amplifier. And if Irminsul is related to the false sky and its roots stretched to the abyss, well, ad astra abyssos, the branches must be in the stars, which means that the meteor that fell from the sky was actually a false star or an Irminsul fruit, a knowledge capsule that forces anyone who touches it to witness the dream of the person it belongs to. And those knowledge capsule stars make up constellations, which, as you may recall, determine people's fates within Teyvat, or so we're led to believe. See, if we're right about the Akasha and the Irminsul being related, then we can look to the Akasha to see an example of fate in action, putting that in quotes. In Chapter 3, we saw how the Akasha could predict the actions of the person whose data had been entered into its system with extreme accuracy. But once Cyno became aware of what was happening to him, he was able to subvert his fate, or his prediction, so to speak. Irminsul might not actually be all that different. It might just be predicting the fates of people and not actually dictating it. So with all that in mind, consider this. The Irminsul tree stretches from the stars to the abyss, and the Hexenzirkel are studying it. This tree contains all of the world's history and is able to forcibly change history if the correct conditions are met. And it may also be able to determine one's fate based on this massive collection of data. This means that one's fate isn't predetermined so much as pre-predicted, and that it may be possible, albeit difficult, to escape one's fate. Alice just might be studying the world's history looking for inconsistencies, possible places where Irminsul has changed the world's memory. Mona and her teacher may... I
feel like Alice is also trying to protect people from the rules, because we got that from the Ori trailer. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I wonder if that could be connected to Irminsul, though.
Investigating the stars as a way to escape the clutches of this artificial fate. So what about Rhinedottir? Well, I think Rhinedottir is investigating the potential of forbidden knowledge, which we know is incompatible with Irminsul. We know basically 3 things about forbidden knowledge. We know it has the ability to pollute or corrupt things, we know it cannot be understood, and we know that it came from beyond this world and from the very depths of the abyss.
I think the abyss is definitely a different world.
Pollution and corruption are weird terms for a type of knowledge, but I think of it this way. If Irminsul is similar to a computer, then the data on it is basically like a file that the computer can read. However, if the file is corrupted, that means its data is faulty and can no longer be read by the system. If you ignore the possibility of just deleting crucial parts of the file, there are basically 2 ways to achieve this unreadability. Either the file's data can get scrambled to the point where it's no longer recognizable, or new incompatible data can be injected and then maybe scrambled until the system can't read it. The former is like corruption, while the latter is pollution. Both methods make it so that the contents of the file can no longer be understood. Withering zones are a good example of pollution. Withering zones are flooded with energy and potentially data, which causes life within it to go a little berserk.
Yeah,
by removing the source of the pollution, or stopping the bleeding, so to speak, a withering zone can be cleared. Elazar, on the other hand, is a good example of corruption. There is not really any new information or energy being absorbed by the body, but instead some of the body's data has been scrambled, causing it to malfunction and crystallize. And yes, the computer metaphor is a valid, if not near perfect, comparison to make. Nahida is the avatar of Irminsul, literally born of its branches, and her kit has her normal attacking by jumping on a keyboard, marking the enemies with a selection box on her skill,
there's also a mouse,
also using a selection box to delete people with her charge attack. Now what's interesting is that in Chapter 3, Act 2's Dream Samsara, the traveler left the dream and went outside the city, describing the area beyond it as a vast, chaotic space. Back in the Perilous Trail quest in the Chasm, Zhao said something similar, that all of the separate spaces were chaotic, yet connected. And when we tried to contact Xiao from those different spaces, his voice was distorted, not unlike how Rukkhadevada's voice was distorted in the memory that she left behind for Nahida. Now, I'm starting to think that the world of Teyvat is just a series of small domains stitched together, and that the space between these domains is a chaotic space, full of raw, meaningless...
Wait, what?
...of small domains stitched together, and that the space between these domains is a chaotic space, full...
Where?
of raw, meaningless, nonsensical data that has yet to be processed into something readable. This fits with the computer analogy we're using because computers hate nonsensical data. It renders them virtually unusable. And what do you do with an unreadable file? Or an undesired one? I don't know about you, but I just delete it. And that deleted file usually goes in the recycling bin, which Irminsul probably doesn't have, but given that its roots extend to the abyss, I wonder if it's not dumping unwanted data into the abyss and just letting it get lost in this sea of chaos. So what would happen if someone tried to, I don't know, recover deleted data sent into the abyss? Would they perhaps be acquiring forbidden knowledge? In the desert of Sumeru, we learned about King Deshret.
I guess that would make sense, but I don't know why it dumped data down in the abyss. I don't know how that would work.
Deshret, a dear friend of Rukkhadevata and the goddess of flowers. Due to unknown circumstances, the goddess of flowers died, and out of grief, King Deshret tried to build an eternal utopia we know as the Golden Slumber. In doing so, he discovered forbidden knowledge which polluted the land, infected his people with Elazar, and nearly drove him insane. But if you read the Staff of Scarlet Sands, you get a slightly different picture of what might have happened. The text in this weapon is told from the Scarlet King's perspective, in first person, so it's kind of like seeing his last thoughts just
I actually hadn't read it yet,
perished,
so
based on the events that it describes.
What was it?
And these events are quite interesting. He starts by describing how the world was created, then goes on to say that the world was infected by a dark poison, and that was driven back by the celestial spikes. Then he seems to go on a crazed rant, talking about how everything should be undone, how the barriers between life and death should be removed, and how time and space should become one thing, and how nothing should exist.
Oh my god! What the heck? Hold up! I gotta read that myself. What is that information? Hold up, where's the lower part? There it is. Okay. First, the sun and the moon were created, and thus day and night came to be. She once described the night sky adorned with 3 bright moons to me in language I have now forgotten. The number of moons should be 3. Okay, the 3 moon goddesses. Follow the silver-bladed outline of dunes at night to find their final fate. Next, weight was created. Thus sand sank, forming the earth, and that which was about weight became the sky. Stipulated that one should rely on the earth but dream of the sky, or the land will bind people's feet, impeding those longing to travel far and hinder expansion through exploration. Fly high and able to explore the future. Then the 7 sage monks were established again, and the rule of trajectories dawned by earth, water, and 7 sages, stars. And even if the celestial sphere was just an illusion, myths are often born where people look up at the stars and moon. In the original world, the barriers were torn down. As penetrated the wait, what barriers? The ones related. The original might be the ones with the dragons. The spikes ascended and pierced through the earth's crust. The rules I have said are more elegant and precise, so there is no need to shall die meaninglessly on their account, and no poetry should be lost for their sake. Hers. The cycle of 7 must be removed. So the secret narrative. What the heck is he saying? Original principles? Humans and what? The heck? Find once more that we've been paired us the many. What was that? I think he might have gone a little bit insane, but I wonder if that forbidden knowledge was actually understood or something. The earlier parts. Huh.
Structured matter down until it's nothing but unrecognizable bits of atoms.
I wonder if the celestial thingies then might have actually had a reason, and maybe Celestia isn't so evil. Though I still think they're the real villain here.
Data. But then he seems to gather his senses again and realizes that he never wanted a utopia at all. He simply wanted to be with the goddess of flowers in Rukkhadevata again. He wanted the goddess of flowers to live. Which is quite interesting, because in Cyno's story quest, we learn of a temple called the Court of Desolation, which is rumored to possess secrets on how to bring the dead back to life. And if the interpretation of what it actually does is accurate, then it's possible that Deshret actually tried to recover the Goddess of Flowers' data from the Abyss so that he could use it to bring her back to life, and in doing so, he became corrupted, infecting his land and destroying his people. This is supposedly the first recorded instance of forbidden knowledge being unleashed upon Teyvat. The second recorded instance was during the Conrian Cataclysm, supposedly triggered by Gold, aka Rhinedottir, a potential member of the Hexenzirkel. So, the disaster of Conria had a few important and notable events. First, black mud oozed out from underground, then corrosive beasts like rifthounds began to spread, and then the Conrian people were cursed and their entire nation was destroyed by the sustainer of heavenly principles. Rhinedottir is indeed responsible for the creation of the rifthounds. However, the description of the Golden Wolf Lord states that the creation was unintentional. I've taken this in the past to mean that she didn't mean for them to be monsters for a few reasons. One of them being Durin. Durin is described historically as being a massive black dragon with corrosive blood, capable of causing ley lines themselves to mutate. He was considered a horrible threat, and yet all of the lore told from his perspective paints him as a very friendly dragon who was happy to meet new people and who wanted to sing songs about his home.
Wasn't
and
that Valen?
And Durin are creatures that she made before she made Albedo, and Albedo is the creation that she calls a success. She also did consider Durin to be a success, but we'll come back to this in a second. This implies that Rhinedottir never intended to make monsters. They were unintentional byproducts of her research, codenamed the Primordial Human Project.
Yeah, we need more info on that.
From the title, a primordial human would have been one of the first to exist in the world, and would therefore be long dead at this point. But wait a second. We were just looking at a guy trying to resurrect the dead, right? With forbidden knowledge? Interesting. So what if we assumed that Rhinedottir was trying to do something similar? Recreate something from data long since discarded using a forbidden type of alchemy that we know as chemia. Now within chemia, there are 4 stages. There's nigredo, or source material, represented by the color black, albedo, or pure material, represented by white, rubido, or refined material, represented by red, and citrinitas, or final product, represented by the color yellow. The idea here is that in order to transmute whatever it is that you want, you must first obtain the source material, process it until it's pure, refine it into something workable, and then craft whatever it is you want from that material. Durin was considered a success because he was the proof of concept of the Nigredo stage, a black dragon. By no means perfect, but proof that her methods could create sentient life, presumably from discarded data, which is why he was probably a little bit messed up. Albedo is a success because he could pass as a human. He'd been refined. He's her chalk prince. Her white prince.
There were 2 more.
He's not
then
quite
Albedo
the human she was trying to create,
so
though, but he was a step in the right direction. Basically, what I'm getting at here is the idea that Rhinedottir is trying to distill the essence of the primordial humans from the chaotic data of the Abyss. In other words, she's accomplishing the impossible by using forbidden knowledge. She's recovering a corrupted file from the recycle bin, so to speak. And the intent behind this research is
primordial
probably why Alice doesn't seem to
right?
hold any malice towards Rhinedottir, despite being at least partly responsible for the cataclysm that occurred as a result of said research. The Hexenzirkel may consider this sacrifice as a simple part of their investigation of Irminsul. And if they can recover discarded data, then, well, any disaster that occurs can just be recovered later, right? But the truth is, ultimately, Rhinedottir's research led to the people of Conria being turned into hilichurls. They likely became infected with the forbidden knowledge that she unleashed, and Celestia forced them into quarantine, not allowing them to re-enter the ley lines and participate in Teyvat's cycle of life and death, lest they infect Irminsul. But the Abyss Order, they're another story. Note that members of the Abyss Order carry ley line branches. And yes,
Yeah,
I know the big
that.
ones don't. They carry those dark statuettes, but before those dark statuettes were released, they did actually carry ley line branches. So I'm just assuming all of them have them. Now, we know that ley line branches are connected to Irminsul itself, and Irminsul is full of memories and elemental energy. Now, this may be why the Abysslings can manipulate the elements, and the branches may allow them to kind of stabilize their own mental state so they don't succumb fully to the corruption of the Abyss. Yet it's possible they also allowed themselves to consume forbidden knowledge and embraced it, which transformed them into beings other than Hilichurls. We will explore this concept more in the second part.
Yeah, what makes them transform into something or the other thing?
Encounters with a Hydro Abyss Herald, and on one of these occasions, the Herald
we know that the Royal Guards just have transformed
into
those knights,
and that they are not so different.
What makes them different?
I've interpreted that to mean that, you know, whatever it is that the Abyss Herald has been infected with, Dainsleif has also been infected with it. So, by that logic, it's possible that Dainsleif has also been infected with forbidden knowledge and has maintained some level of control over his infection. Yeah, but he has something that we don't know about. His title of Bowkeeper is vague in English, but in Chinese it translates a little more closely to stick picker-upper. And if the sticks in question are fallen branches of Irminsul, we might think of them as discarded pieces of data from Irminsul. In other words, Dainsleif is the keeper of lost memories. He may not have been able to stop the disaster in Conria, but based on his words in travail, he does seem motivated to break free of the laws of Teyvat. His exact words are, "We will defy this world with a power from beyond," which is funny because a power from beyond is exactly the words used to describe forbidden knowledge, because it does come from beyond this world. And the icing on the cake here actually comes from his character card, which was unfortunately only ever released in Chinese. But at the bottom of it, where his elements should be listed, is this.
Yeah, I've actually seen that. I don't know what that means. Many have tried
to decode this with marginal success, but I would like to argue that this cannot be decoded because there's literally nothing to decode.
Forbidden knowledge?
His element is literally nothing. It's the forbidden knowledge. It's corrupted, scrambled data that literally cannot be understood. This would explain a lot of things.
I think it's probably
Abyssal. Attempt to revive the homeland may be an attempt to literally recover Conria from corrupted data found
maybe
deep
Abyssal does
the
come
abyss.
from forbidden
and
knowledge.
If they can pull that off, then they just might be able to recover data from even farther back. Primordial data, which may or may not be of interest to us and our twin. See, I've long since held the belief that the twins really are from Teyvat originally, but from a time that has been deleted from Irminsul. We know that's possible now. And we know that the Traveler has headaches and doesn't completely trust their own memories, which means that there could be gaps in there where their memories have been completely removed or sealed.
Yeah, that was really odd when
on the twins' character cards, the Chinese text calls Teyvat your new world, as in possessive. And it also says that, quote, "Your homeland has been destroyed. All architecture has been reduced to dust. You are originally the one that should own your world and embrace the people within, but the last descendant of the subjugated civilization. Please do not lament the lost moments." If this is to be taken literally, and the twins are from a deleted civilization, then it would explain why we generate resin.
Wait a second. Wait. Let me find it first, and then I'll show you all. Because I'm pretty sure I've seen that tweet in English, which is the one I would personally take. Hold up. Let me try to find it. Pretty sure I retweeted it like not long ago. I mean, around a year ago probably, but it's better than going through the entire Genshin thingy. It's gonna take forever. Bear with me a sec. Hold up. Just gotta find it somewhere. Oh, there it is. Found it. Found the ether one. I don't know the female one. Hold up. Don't lose faith in that which you have lost in this new world. You will never be you'll never be alone or leave your footprints where you have yet stride. Your new world. Yeah, it does say your new world will unfold before you. Your new world. Wait, is that the same one?
For elemental energy, why we can so easily connect with. Please do not lament.
That is the
lost moments.
I know there were two of them.
If this is to be taken literally, and the twins are from a deleted civilization, then it would explain you are originally the one. You are original, or it doesn't come.
I know there's two of them.
New world, as in possessed or sealed. So we know that's possible.
Okay, hold up. There might be more. I did find the Lumine one. Let me see if I can find it like this. I'm gonna pull a big brain move. Found it. Just look that up. Hold up. Found it. I just typed that in the search bar. Alright, the world you once knew is but dust, but the wonders you knew but rubble. Though you should have your own world and your own people. Lamenting what is already lost. It does say your own. I never noticed that. That's odd. It does say your. That's really odd. Interesting. Okay. Let me continue.
Now. And we know that the traveler has headaches and doesn't completely trust their own memories, which means that there could be gaps in there where their memories have been completely removed or sealed. And on the twins' character cards, the Chinese text calls Teyvat your new world, as
yeah, it
in
does.
Possessive.
And it does on the English ones
that,
too, not
quote,
just the Chinese
your
ones.
Your homeland has been destroyed. All architecture has been reduced to dust. You are originally the one that should own your world and embrace the people within, but the last descendant of the subjugated civilization. Please do not lament the lost moments.
Okay, the last descendant. Meaning there's likely more people before us. Alice? Of the subjugated civilization. Might have been subjugated by the second. Wait. What if the primordial one is actually us? That doesn't make sense. Doesn't add up. Unless there was a point before the dragons. I'm confused. I don't know what to believe. Because if he was deleted from Irminsul, no one would know about it, right? So there would not even be anything about Primordial One or anything. Because they wouldn't know.
If this is to be taken literally, and the twins are from a deleted civilization, then it would explain why we generate resin, have an affinity for elemental energy, why we can so easily connect with Irminsul, and why we can purify corrupted materials. Because we're from here. We're supposed to be able to do that. And it means that our twin might be trying to quite literally restore the homeland from corrupted data by means of forbidden knowledge. I have a lot more to say on this topic, but I'm going to save the rest of this for part 2 of this mini-series, where I will be talking about Seelies, gods, and of course,
oh, this was interesting. Wait,
trust me, it's long.
Maybe she's onto something.
Oh, but hey, while the credits roll with all my lovely chill.
All right, let's get to the next one.
Islands.
Oh God.
Home to advanced civilizations.
Stop. Let me get
I hate to break it to you guys, but this whole descender thing, it isn't new. We've always known the twins were descenders. We just didn't really understand the context.
Yeah, we didn't have a name for it.
See, the traveler's character story explicitly says they descended to the continent of Teyvat. The PlayStation exclusive glider and the weapon are called the Wings and Sword of Descension. And even in the opening cutscene, it talks about how the twins fell to Teyvat. And the more you look back, the more obvious this whole descender thing becomes.
What about the meteor on the chasm, actually?
Why did this revelation come as such a shock during Chapter 3? Is it that most simply forgot the Traveler descended from above? Or is it that there are descenders other than the Traveler? Or is it that the Traveler's twin, who should be a descender, isn't considered one? I won't pretend to know, but I do have an idea, so in this video we are going to investigate exactly that, this whole concept of descenders, as part 2 of this 3-part investigation continues. As always, links for further reading and watching will be in the description box, while any corrections, clarifications, or fun tidbits will be in a pinned comment. I will also leave links to both part 1 and part 3 as they become available in the description box as well, so please make sure to check those out. They're not necessary, but highly recommended. Alrighty then, let's pick up where we last left off in part 1 and talk about the Descenders. While we know of the existence of at least 4 Descenders, we actually only know of
Alice
one
is one of them.
confirmed Descender, and that's the Traveler. So basically everything...
If the Hexenzirkel, which may have included Alice or not, we don't... I mean, Alice is a part of it. May have included Rhinedottir or not. Is a part of the... They would be... If they really were investigating Irminsul and trying to restore corrupted knowledge, which would be like before the present, then it would add up why Alice may have been a descender. Maybe her situation is kind of like the Traveler, and she was kind of away for a bit, or is her situation entirely different, and she actually is just from another world, or is she just not a descender and was just born, I don't know, 1,000 years ago or something?
Everything we know about Descenders in general can only be viewed within the context of the Traveler. Which is
she did know about Scaramouche's stuff, so unless her possibly restoring Irminsul, corrupted knowledge is something to do with it, which I don't think so. I mean, it wouldn't be that fast. Like, have to be very specific about it. I think she is a descender. Continuing.
It gives us plenty of material to work with.
Also, Aloy.
This doesn't mean that all Descenders will be like the Traveler, though. Just that it's almost impossible to make any real predictions about what other Descenders might be like, because all Descenders only have 2 things in common. The fact that they descended from above, and the fact that Irminsul does not contain any records on them. But just the fact that they're called Descenders is enough to imply that they came from other worlds or are alien to Teyvat in some way. Aliens wouldn't be able to be recorded by Irminsul, as they would likely be completely incompatible, right? That's just logical. But this doesn't actually seem to be the case at all. While the Traveler is described as being an alien life form in their character stories, there are a lot of things that kind of contradict this idea. For one, only humans, well, humans with visions, are said to be able to ascend to Celestia, where they will attain godhood. An alien life form should not be able to do this, and yet the character cards for the Traveler and their character stories also claim that they will ascend to the seat of God.
Yeah.
But the Traveler doesn't seem to be human, and they're also unable to acquire a vision. Therein lies a contradiction. And it gets a little bit worse. Despite definitely coming from beyond the firmament and traveling to countless other worlds, the twins have a lot of bizarre connections to Teyvat itself, enough to be really suspicious. For example, not only can the Traveler use elemental energy without a vision, which is an ability that was only otherwise available to a non-human like an Archon or an Adeptus, but they can also wield multiple elements at the same time without an external apparatus. This is something we have only seen Ashdahad do, and even then he probably only gets that ability from his deep connections to the ley lines. And no, Scaramouche's boss form does not count, but that is a completely separate discussion. The Traveler can also connect with Irminsul, which is basically like the root server of the entire world, and this takes basically no effort at all.
Yeah, that happened quite quickly.
Producing resin on a daily basis. This resin is the same resin
I don't know if the resin
to
part is canon,
re-energize
but
petrified offshoots of Irminsul in exchange for crystallized memories in the form of artifacts and weapon materials. That's a pretty peculiar ability for some unrelated alien to have, don't you think? And don't forget that the Traveler knows exactly what the teleport waypoints are used for, even though no one else.
Yeah, that is really odd, though. I never found that odd. Why does that just
specific
to
I would like
them?
Remind you that the teleport waypoints
and no one knows where they came from.
The ley lines in order to warp you around. If the Traveler is an alien, then why do they know how to use these instinctively? The answer is quite simple. The Traveler is from Teyvat. If you're confused how they can be both an alien descender and also be from Teyvat, well, I was too. Until I remembered something rather important. I would like to bring your attention to the infamous book Before Sun and Moon.
Heck yes,
this
okay.
Book is basically the most reliable record we have on the genesis of Teyvat. If you haven't read it, you should.
But
as it appears
books
to be a
do
record
get
that
edited
Irminsul failed to alter.
with Irminsul.
More on that one in a bit. Well, the entire book is a treasure.
I'm sorry, what?
This book is basically the most reliable record we have on the genesis of Teyvat. If you haven't read it, you should, as it appears to be a record that Irminsul failed to alter.
Are you sure? Are you sure that's just not something that maybe was never really removed, but because the war was so serious, no one ever remembered Phanes?
More on that one in a bit. Well, the entire book is a treasure trove of info and theory fodder. It's the very first section that's always stood out to me. Let me read it to you and show you what I mean. Well, actually, I want to read you a direct translation of the passage from Chinese because the nuances are a little bit different than the official localization, and I think it's important.
I hope
Here we
it's
go.
a good translation.
The eternal throne of heaven has come and the world has been renewed. Then the true king, the original one, went to war with the masters of the old world, the 7 terror kings. Those terrible kings are dragons. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
This passage implies that the world was ruled by dragons at one point. That's not new. But not that it was always ruled by dragons. Being called the true king suggests that the primordial one at least had some claim to this world despite coming from somewhere else. Enough to wage a war against a currently dominant
The true
species,
god, right?
anyway.
Right now.
If they didn't
Doesn't have to
actually
mean the
have
past.
a real claim to the planet, then they should be considered an alien, right? So the primordial one then goes on to win the war against the dragons, terraform the earth, and create the human race. Which means human would have alien origins if the primordial one is also an actual alien.
I mean,
Like,
that's
on the one
nothing
hand,
new.
you can argue that
Starail.
because humans were
People in Starail are humans. People in Honkai are humans. Those are literally a thing. With human civilization is an entire branch in the imaginary tree. That's nothing new.
created on Earth, they are therefore a native species to Earth. But I'm not too sure about that. Because Genshin references both Abrahamic and Gnostic mythology in its genesis, and in those myths, God created humans in his own image. If this holds up, then that means that if the primordial one is an alien, then humans would be based off of them and therefore also alien. And, you know,
being an alien in Genshin or Honkai doesn't mean not being a human.
Him are also not aliens.
I mean, you just have to look at Starail. A lot of people are humans there from different worlds. I mean, we got Honkai, we got Bubble universes. What more do we need as confirmation? Auto literally says there's a branch which is specific to the human civilization. So
this begs the question, is the primordial one an alien? Well, it turns out Conria seemed to have the same question, because during the quest to acquire this book Before Sun and Moon, Enjo says that Conria sent a delegation to Enkanomiya in order to find proof that Celestia came from beyond this world. In other words, proof that Celestia and those within it are aliens. He also makes the claim that back when the primordial one ruled over a single unified civilization, no gods walked the earth. That's right, no gods, none, nada. But Paimon responds to this claim, saying that when gods walked the earth is as far back as history goes into that. There is no time before gods walked the earth, right? This suggests that the time when no gods walked the earth is a time that Celestia doesn't want anyone to know about, which means...
I actually got a question. Can Celestia alter Irminsul? I mean, we know Nahida can. But I guess Nahida is also a different case, so we don't know if Celestia actually can do that. If they can, they would definitely remove the history of the past. But if they can't, well, maybe the history is out there, but just whoever had that knowledge would want to get the race. Because otherwise, why would they want Orobashi to sacrifice himself? They could just, poof, erase the data, and everything will be fine. So I don't think they can actually alter Irminsul. Potentially, the God of Time possibly can. I mean, the God of Time definitely can. But Celestia as a whole, like the Sustainer and everything, I think, although they may be powerful and they may have some power over fate, we know that from the corruption of the common people, it's like a level above reality. But After altering history through Irminsul, I don't think they can do that, but we'll see.
It was probably the unified civilization. But this whole no gods thing doesn't mean that there weren't any magical immortal beings hanging out with the humans. It just means that these beings were not considered gods. They were not objects of worship. That was something reserved exclusively for the primordial one, right? These beings probably went by an entirely different label, like maybe Seelies. Because see, we know that Seelies were angelic-like spirits that guided the human savages, meaning they existed when humanity was quite young, and because our only known survivor of the Seelies is the goddess of flowers, we can assume that it's
we do know that she's a
Seelies
Seelie. I actually only learned right around a few weeks ago.
They just weren't. Now, we'll come back to this idea a little bit later, but for now, I want to point out that the only two civilizations known to be ones without gods or without the recognition of gods are Enkanomiya and Conria, both of whom are underground, and according to Dainsleif, they both share architectural similarities, which makes you wonder if Conria is also an offshoot of the original unified civilization. If it is, it might mean that Conria believes in more of a monotheistic god and does not believe in a bunch of polytheistic gods.
You mean the primordial one?
Dainsleif's distaste for the Archons and gods may be because he doesn't even believe that they should be worshipped since they are not the primordial one and therefore not actually a god.
You mean Dane would know of it?
This might actually be why Conria and Dainsleif have a bone to pick with Celestia. They may, in fact, suspect that Celestia has an alien running the show. Now remember, Enjo is searching for proof that Celestia came from beyond this world, specifically through the means of the book Before Sun and Moon. This book is the same one that got Orobashi sentenced to death by Celestia just for reading it, which suggests that its contents were never altered by Irminsul. And in
I don't think they ever tried to hide it. I don't think they
says
can.
That at one point, the primordial one, who should by all accounts be native to this world to some degree, if our theories are correct, was challenged by the second throne, also known as the second who came.
That we do know as
where.
Confirmed.
This challenge resulted in a cataclysmic war that caused the heavens to fall and the earth to split open, and yet no one knows how this war ended. Although I do have my suspicions. See, in the Traveler's character card,
they think the primordial one won, in Kanomiya that is, but I think definitely the second who came actually won. But we'll see.
Your homeland has been destroyed. All of the buildings have been reduced to dust. You are originally the one who should own your own world and embrace the people within.
Are you saying that the Travelers are the primordial one?
Of a subjugated civilization, please do not lament the lost moments. So now we have a subjugated civilization, a traveler who's supposed to be an alien but actually has really deep connections to Teyvat's original functions, and a mysterious entity that went to war with heaven and it's said to have come from beyond this world, or at least it's suspected of it. And then we have the Abyss Twin who wants to see the return of their homeland, which has been destroyed, and I don't know, these things seem to line up a little too well. Now, if you haven't pieced it together yourself yet, I am indeed suggesting that the Traveler, and actually both twins, are from the original unified civilization. Only, instead of falling underground, they escaped Teyvat entirely, only to circle back around to it around the time of the Conrian Cataclysm.
So they might have lost their memories?
Just in time to kick off the events of the main game. Now, during this time, it's probable that the Second Throne successfully took control of Teyvat. This includes control over Irminsul. And this is where I want to circle back to the other.
Why would they not delete the info then?
The fact that Irminsul seemingly does not record any information regarding them. I think this is only partly true. We don't need to look any further than the Abyss Twin to notice that something is very odd here. See, by nature of being twins, Ether and Lumine have to come from the same origins. One cannot be from Teyvat while the other isn't unless they are not twins at all. That is a pretty valid theory in and of itself, but it's one I do not want to entertain for this video as it goes like a totally different route, okay? For the purpose of this video, we are assuming the fact that they are twins is correct. Now, notice what Nahida says about the Abyss Twin, that they suddenly appeared in Conria and
someone messed with the records,
then appear to have vanished as if their fate was being forcibly obscured. If the Abyss Twin was like a normal Teyvat person, being, then there would have been records prior to their random appearance in Conria. But there aren't any records of that nature that we know of. I feel like Nahida would have said something a little bit different if those records existed at all. So here's the big thing. In the previous video, I made the case for Irminsul being a bit like the Akasha in that it doesn't decree fate, it only predicts fate, which it then displays in the sky in the form of constellations. But note that Irminsul would only be able to predict one's fate if it was also able to record data about them. So here's a fun fact
and he couldn't record it.
Prior to touching the statue of 7 in Mondstadt, the Traveler did not have a constellation at all. So not only did tapping into the ley lines give the Traveler access to the elements, it also gave them a constellation. Now, Mona, being an astrologist, uses constellations to predict things.
Is it the elements that kind of slowly apply them to Teyvat? Kind of like into Irminsul? Or are constellations then different?
Right? Well, according to her voice lines, she knows that the Traveler is not of this world, and she therefore cannot give us an astrological reading. But in other places, like during her story quest, she still manages to somehow predict our movements using astrology, which is odd. If we were completely unrecorded by Irminsul, she wouldn't be able to predict anything at all. We'd just be a big blank space. She also can't find anything in regards to Paimon, which is also kind of odd.
Wait, did she ever say that though?
Paimon's memory was tampered with just like everyone else's, save for the Traveler, which means that Paimon should be of this world, right? But she doesn't seem to have a constellation while the Traveler does have a constellation, yet the Traveler's mind cannot be tampered with. The only other person we know of that Mona cannot read the constellation of is Venti.
Also because of gods?
So I guess this kind of makes sense.
Yeah, gods.
But Venti does have a constellation, like the Traveler. But he also seems to be able to have his memory tampered with, like Paimon.
I think he might be able to purposely stop the readings, because when Mona was, if you read the voice line, when Mona was reading is trying to read his constellation, it was kind of like wind got out of her, like saying, hey, I see what you're trying to do, I ain't letting you do it. But like, it might be able to be read, but he just doesn't want her to read it.
I want to go back to an analogy I used in the previous video when I compared Irminsul to a computer or a cloud server, because I think it kind of resolves the issue around what Irminsul seems to record and what it doesn't. I just want to start by saying I think Irminsul actually records everything indiscriminately. If it's within reach of the ley lines, Irminsul can and does record it. But I also think that the twins, having come from a destroyed civilization, were also deleted from Irminsul's memory. So when they first arrived in Teyvat, Irminsul had no data on them and had to accrue it slowly over time. It also wouldn't know how to store or reference those records, seeing as it thought of these twins as unknown entities, so it didn't really have a good label for them. But when the Traveler made contact with the Statue of 7,
but then why would it only appear in Conria for
their
the
user
sibling?
account, and all of their accumulated session data
and they're not
was
in
then
Irminsul
assigned to them, allowing Irminsul to give them a constellation.
Would it have to be all 7
given
elements?
That the Traveler's user account is literally ancient and belonging to data that should have been long since deleted, it's possible that Celestia has marked any record referencing the original civilization as classified, even
Corrupted
to the
knowledge?
avatar of Irminsul herself.
Possibly.
Now remember, Orobashi was sentenced to death for reading a book about the original unified civilization. Celestia does not want anyone to know about this. This restricted access gives the impression—
Wait, why would that not be corrupted knowledge for Orobashi? Is it something about the book then?
that there are no records
Or is it something even beyond the time of Phanes? That's kind of like my other theory. That's not mentioned here. That maybe before the dragons, there was another civilization. Even if that sounds a bit weird. And then the dragons actually took over. And the travelers had to flee. I know that's a really weird theory, but
descenders when there actually should be and is. Likewise, gods probably have all of their information under slightly different restricted access because they're, gods, archons, so that makes sense. But where does that actually leave us? This section title seems like quite a leap, I know, but stick with me, it is
what is
tinfoil
this?
hat time. If the primordial one is considered God, then its 4 shades should be the archangels like Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, right?
Why is Istaroth not one of
Angels
them?
were organized into choirs, meaning an archangel had a higher rank.
It needs to be connected to
angel.
Istaroth.
Now, according to the staff of the Scarlet Sands, the primordial one created night and day, which was represented by a sun and 3 moons. The 3 moons likely being the 3 moon sisters we know of as Arya, Sonnet, and Canon, who are closely tied to the Seelies.
And 2 of them died.
The Seelies are known to have been once beautiful pale beings tasked with teaching and guiding early humans, which easily makes them candidates for something like a guardian angel, or at least a lower ranked angel. Plus, their regressed forms are based on a sea slug commonly known of as a sea angel, so there's that. During these early days in the unified civilization, we know that no gods walked the earth, which would make sense because angels are not supposed to be gods, they're servants of God. But angels are also closely related to demons, who, depending on the text, are all actually angels who fell from grace. Coincidentally, those labeled gods in Genshin are actually called demon gods in Chinese. And they bear the names of demons from the Ars Goetia's Lesser Key of Solomon.
That is true.
Now, among those names is Paimon. Paimon is kind of unique because within the game of Genshin, she behaves and looks an awful lot like how Seelies do in Legends, pale and silver like the moon, flies at the speed of a Seelie, likes to sing, guides a traveler, loves treasure.
Yeah, Paimon is very sus. I still think she's something, but I don't think she's the god of time anymore. Because we just had a lot of conflicting information, especially in the latest Archon quest. Hey, how are you doing, Mal? Hope you're doing well. We're watching the theory. We're in part 2 right now.
And she has moons and stars throughout her entire design, right? But Paimon in the Ars Goetia is most notable for their absolute loyalty.
I'm just saying, I just kind of remember this for no reason, but she wasn't affected by the corruption back in the Archon quest with Scaramouche. That was kind of sus.
To Lucifer. And who is Genshin's Paimon most loyal to?
I think I actually read this somewhere.
The Traveler. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but Lucifer's name literally means light bringer or morning star, and both of the twins have a golden light-based power originally.
Oh yeah, the twins are Lucifer. I think I read a theory about that sometime, a long time ago. I lost much? Mostly just part 1 and a bit of part 2. But yeah, we're still gonna watch part 3. I did have a theory about it, so I'll say it again since you might have missed that part. From the info we got so far, I have a theory that's, I guess, kind of similar to the one that she has about the Travelers, but it's different. What if, it's a bit of a cracked theory, before the dragons, there was another time we don't know of, and that time, that was completely deleted, so it was kind of like the Forbidden Knowledge, unlike Phanes, which was still able to, you know, be recorded in the book. And Orobashi didn't bring about another calamity, so I don't think Phanes is was deleted from Irminsul. But I think possibly, and this is a very cracked theory, there is nothing else indicating it, but aside from this, what if a time before the dragons existed was completely deleted? The dragons were actually not the first people living in this world, but the second people. And the first ones, the first civilization which was completely deleted, would have included the Travelers and possibly Alice, which is why she would possibly be trying to explore the world with the Hexenzirkel and trying to restore Irminsul. Yeah, this theory is definitely gonna turn out wrong, but it's a theory, so just a crack theory to share. A theory, just saying, not the don't kill me, okay? It's just a theory, but yeah. I know.
Gem star, which
Ridiculous.
is the symbol of the primordial
but it's
one,
a theory,
so
it's
supposed to
fun
represent
to
him because the
discuss.
primo in primo gem is actually supposed to be primordial, which, by the way, is also
to not
the
lose
name
anything. Yeah, I probably should. Thank you for the info, by the way.
in the Ars Goetia is most notable for their absolute loyalty to Lucifer.
Oh yeah, we're talking about Lucifer. I think I saw a theory about Ether and Lucifer.
The Traveler. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but Lucifer's name literally means light bringer or morning
Travelers are
star.
probably
And
resembling
both of the twins
Lucifer.
have a golden light-based power originally.
Were banished
They
from
also
heaven.
have wings
Wait.
like angels supposedly do, decorated with the Primogem star, which is a symbol of the primordial one, or at least it's supposed to represent him because the Primo in Primogem is actually supposed to be primordial.
Wait, Lucifer
which,
was banished
by
from
the
heaven.
way,
You
is
see
also
anything
the
else
name
happening?
of the game in Chinese, the primordial
kind of
god or
rebel?
the original god, right? All these things are connected here. Now we know the Traveler is also called the Morning Star on multiple occasions, which suggests that the Abyss Twin might be the Evening Star. Which is fitting, since these two stars are technically the exact same star in the sky, hence
Why was
twins.
it called Morning Star?
The twins also refer to themselves as literal stars, which is funny because in a lot of Abrahamic theology, it's believed that
was two
angels
stars,
are
yes,
actually considered
when they
stars
came
in
down.
the sky, whereas archons are like the planets. And note, despite being one of God's most beloved angels, Lucifer believed that angels are actually considered stars in the sky, whereas archons are like the planets. And note, despite being one of God's most beloved angels, Lucifer was thought to have been the angel who attempted to place their throne above God's, which is what got them cast out of heaven in the first place. Although this seems to be the case only in texts that consider the name Lucifer to be synonymous with Satan, but that's again another investigation for another day. But going back to Enkanomiya and the Unified Civilization, I want to point out a series of achievements. One of them references Kairos, another Phosphoros, and the other Hesperus. Kairos is obviously referencing the
Wait, what is
Asperos
Asperos
here?
here?
The primordial one, so, you know, like an archangel.
Could it be another shade?
But Phosphorus and Hesperus, those happen to be two alternate names for Lucifer. The point here that I'm trying to make is that this dualistic nature of Lucifer as the light bringer and the night bringer, the good angel and the evil angel, it seems to be something embodied by the twins and the paths that they chose. In light of all this, I can only conclude that the twins are not only beings that belong to Teyvat, but are in fact angels from the primordial era.
I think possibly even before that.
Lucifer, entities that would descend from the sky like the envoys of heaven described in the Tiara artifact sets, and who would possess a level of authority within Irminsul systems that are unavailable to gods even of Nahida's rank. It's possible, too, that due to the passage of time, that the Traveler has some large gaps in their memory, and that they must travel through Teyvat just like their twin did in order to not only recover their memories, but also their original powers. It's possible that the Abyss Twin also knows everything and is siding with the Abyss Order in order to resurrect their destroyed homeland while also destroying
that would actually make a lot more sense with the homeland.
After all, the Traveler's character card outright states that they are the ones who should own their own world and take care of the people within it, and that they will ascend to the seat of God. I can't help but wonder if the twins were—
Hold up. Let me just show you again. It does say there. Even in the English version, your new world. I've read this before, but I never realized it. That was also this over here. Though you should have your own world and your own people. Like the world you knew is but dust. But you once knew, is it saying like maybe this is not actually a world that was destroyed where they came from, but maybe they return after thousands of years, and the world is no longer the same. Though it does say in this new world, over here, it then goes back to saying your new world. So maybe they did live here after all. So maybe they're not actually from the Sea of Stars, but maybe either a time before Irminsul, or their data got completely deleted a long time ago. Which is, I think, what may have happened here. This corrupted knowledge and everything.
Were originally heirs to their original powers. It's possible that the Abyss Twin also knows everything and is siding with the Abyss Order in order to resurrect their destroyed homeland while
definitely against
also
Celestia
destroying
too.
the Second Throne in the process. After all, the Traveler's character card outright states that they are the ones who should own their own world and take care of the people within it, and that they will ascend to the seat of God. I can't help but wonder if the twins were originally heirs to the Throne of Fanes, if they were supposed to inherit the earth but were interrupted and cast out by the Second Throne. The secondary names of Lucifer, the Phosphorus and Hesperus, being mentioned casually alongside the god of time Kairos, who we know to be a shade of the primordial one, also makes me wonder if Kairos herself isn't pulling strings in the background, trying to assist the rightful heirs in obtaining their rightful place.
This animation here. Maybe that's why I think she may have been Istaroth talking to us back then. Kind of like guiding us back into last Archon quest. With Sumeru. The thing when the vase wasn't broken. It was broken, I mean.
Kairos is brought up time and time again, and I just can't help but think that maybe Kairos was one of the Moon Sisters. And the Moon Sisters
Wait, where does this come
loved
from?
the Morning Stars just as much as they loved each other, like they were family. And those morning stars should be Lucifer. It should be the twins. And those same morning stars were said to have survived the calamity that destroyed not only the Moon Sisters, but also the Seelies.
I mean, they did survive
And
it
I think
technically.
we're
They
good
did
to leave
arrive
it there
then.
for now. That concludes most of my thoughts on the Descenders, but there are still a lot of loose ends to tie up as a result of Part 1 and Part 2. Earlier, I likened the Seelies to angels and the demon gods to fallen angels.
Okay. Let me watch the animation again. The Battle Pass animation. Hold up. Does it have, there's a official Genshin Impact thingy. I'm gonna try to... Oh, it's in Japanese. I guess we can use subtitles though. I'm reconsidering this kingdom possibly as a primordial one civilization. Let's see if we can reach anything. Crowned hair. There'd be a king. Then what would this kingdom of darkness be? I guess we don't really have enough information about what it could be the Abyss. But did the Abyss ever even was connected or existed in Teyvat alongside the primordial one civilization? Or was that only after? I guess that's also the question of when the Abyss came into even being. Let's continue for now. God of time. Ads. Oof. Alright.
There's tiny academic squishy little friendlies. Let me get straight to the point. I think that my little scholars, tiny academic squishy little friendlies. Let me get straight to the point. I think that I may have accidentally stumbled upon the identity of Istaroth herself. I actually wrote a whole theory about it before the 3.3 patch dropped, and then the 3.3 patch dropped with even better evidence. So
yeah, I think that was definitely Istaroth
version of my findings, I guess. Now, for those of you who are new, this video is the final episode of a 3-part series of connected theories around forbidden knowledge, Seelies, and the God of Time. Now, you do not need to watch the other 2 parts in order to understand this one, but it will certainly help as the previous 2 videos provide some very
why
useful
talk to us
context.
may have
Links to
been
the
that maybe
previous parts
it's
will be in the
guiding
description
us.
box, along with links for further reading and watching, and corrections, annotations, and additional information, if any, will be in a pinned comment below. Now, I don't want to waste anyone's time here, so travelers, please put your seat back and tray tables in their upright and locked position as our flight will be starting momentarily. The captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign in preparation for our departure, so sit back, relax, and
Are we in
enjoy
for
your
a
flight.
lore bombs?
Let's
This
start off
theory?
by setting up some baselines. Istaroth is the demon name of the god of time that the people of Enkanomiya know as Kairos. They call her the ruler of time and identify her as the shade of the primordial one, establishing her as one of the highest
Yep, we
powers
still
in
know
all
the
of
other 3.
Teyvat. In the previous video, we also established the idea that the 3 of the primordial shades were the 3 moon sisters, while the 4th was likely the sun.
Oh, wait, what? I know that she said that the moons were connected to Istaroth, but was that what she meant?
In the previous video, we also established the idea that the 3 of the primordial shades were the 3 moon sisters, while the 4th was likely the sun. This makes Istaroth one of the 3 moon sisters.
Here's why I don't buy this theory. Now, it's just a theory, respect. But hold up. Let me just bring something up. I'm gonna have to look for it, so sorry if there's any, if it just takes a while. I'm gonna have to try to find it. But there's this one image that I don't trust. The one last video is the craziest. Alright, we'll see. There's this one image that makes me very sus of why this theory, I might not buy it yet. But we'll see. Because there's one theory I have that kind of conflicts with it. It's just a theory, of course, but let me show you guys something. This is from the Genshin Impact manga. Yeah. What are those three figures? Now, initially, when I read the manga, I never thought anything about it. We didn't know anything about the primordial one. And that was when Vanessa asked about Venti about Celestia. And Venti got really nervous and awkward. And he thought of something. Kind of like, he feared something. Those three things. Now, there are 4 shades of the primordial one. We know one of them is Istaroth, and I'm pretty sure that Istaroth was never in control of the second throne. If they won the war, I think Istaroth survived or something. The point is, I don't think Istaroth was the second throne right now, because we saw the influence of Istaroth 500 years ago about the Sacred Tree, which was kind of also in the present, because the seed was planted in the present. We may or may not have seen, but I think it was Istaroth, in the latest Star Conquest, and we know that the people of the Primordial one did say, the Enconomia, did say that Istaroth was the only one that keeps actually, that hasn't abandoned them. So, if we take that Istaroth was never, maybe it fled, I don't know what happened, but the second throne has no power over it, then what about the other 3 shades? Were they killed? Or what if they were turned into just sort of watchers or something? Basically, just servants for the second throne, the Sustainer. And that is my theory on it. It's just a theory again. Let's continue.
Sisters, as well as one of the
It's also because the moon was used to mark time. So, reconnect time as possible. Yeah, exactly. The moon's, I think also the sun, right? The sunrise and the moon, the position of the moon and direction is like in the very very much past. We're used to essentially mark time because there was no clock or anything. Is that what you mean? Yeah, in that sense, I suppose the moon could be connected to Istaroth. We'll see.
They call her the ruler of time and identify her as the shade of the primordial one, establishing her as one of the highest powers in all of Teyvat. In the previous video, we also established the idea that the 3 of the primordial shades were the 3 moon sisters, while the 4th was likely the sun. This makes Istaroth one of the 3 moon sisters, as well as one of the primordial shades. Now, her non-demon name, Kairos,
those 3 names are in the book, so we don't know if their actual names.
Word Kairos
may be
means
different.
Perceived time, as opposed to
so
Chronos,
it may even
which
be
is absolute time. To put it simply, Kairos is what you experience when you go, oh man, that traffic light took forever to change.
Oh,
Chronos
too.
is the
I
actual
see.
denomination of time that passed at said traffic light, so like 2 minutes. The first is how the period of time felt to you,
God of
while
moments.
the second is how much time actually passed. Thus far, we have seen 3 confirmed demonstrations of Istaroth's abilities, 2 in Enconomia and 1 in Inazuma. In Enconomia, Istaroth is credited with the creation of the Sin Shades, ghostly figures who are basically snapshots of living people's memories, more or less frozen in time. These figures are only visible during the Evernight period, so when the Helios isn't on. This ability is actually considered a ley line disorder, which means it's connected to the Irminsul tree, which
I think she definitely has power over it.
Irminsul is all about memories.
Just looking at the Sacred Sakura makes sense why she'd have a connection.
Istaroth is also said to be responsible for teaching the sage Abrax how to build the Helios during one of his dreams. It's kind of funny how these 2 things overlap. Her third ability seems to be tied to Irminsul as well. During A's second story quest, Istaroth assisted Makoto in the creation of an Irminsul seed, which allowed the sacred Sakura to bloom in the past instead of in the present. This altered the entire timeline of the last 500 years of Inazuma's history. And this is very different from the memory rewrite that we've seen Nahida and Scaramouche perform with Irminsul.
Oh, because that was just memories, right?
It didn't just alter the hearts and minds
it
of
altered
humans,
time.
It just actually rewrote time, like totally changed history. Now, there is one other noteworthy mention of her in Mondstadt, of all places, specifically as the...
Each month is a moon cycle. Oh, wait, they're right, 28 days, right? I completely forgot about it. In that way, yeah, it would also be count days. That's also why it's more related to time than the sun. Yeah, you do got a point. Because that would also make a month. So people would also be able to know what time of, like, the passage of time, of days in general, and not just the time right now.
Rewrote time, like, totally changed history. Now, there is one other noteworthy mention of her in Mondstadt, of all places, specifically as the god of time that was worshipped alongside Barbados, and as the Thousand Winds of Time, a name that she later lent to the Thousand Winds Temple. Now, I won't talk too much about her relationship with Venti in this video, solely because there actually isn't
Venti did say that Venti was one of the Thousand Winds, which is sus.
Venti out, though. And now, that said, Venti does have a minor time manipulation ability, as demonstrated by his pulling of memories from the far-flung past during the Dainsleif Fest, and we also know from his
What if Venti is a part of Istaroth? What does that mean of Istaroth itself?
Time, which makes it sound a bit more like a tree than wind, but whatever. Now, any further investigation would turn this into a Venti video and not really an Istaroth video, and, well, the point of this isn't really to investigate Venti, it's to investigate Istaroth, so that's where we're going to leave that. Now, the last thing I want to mention about Istaroth before we move on to the actual theory portion of this video, again has to do with her Greek name, Kairos. In addition to the time etymology, the name is also associated with archery and weaving. Specifically, it references the moment when the shuttle passes through the loom.
Fate?
I mentioned
weaving can sometimes be associated with fate.
Time together help link Istaroth to the Morai, also known as the Greek Fates. These goddesses
the fates.
Sisters that enforce the
weaving
law
is usually associated with it.
The lives of mortals were represented as singular threads that the first sister would spin, the second sister would measure, and the third sister would cut. In other words,
one is essentially decides, essentially starts someone's fate. The other would weave out their live events, and the other would decide when they would die. That's basically it. I have heard about this before.
Life and death. Now, given that Dainsleif mentions the Loom of Fate operation in regards to the Abyss Order's plans to rebel against the heavens, the connections between the three goddesses spinning out the literal fates of mankind on their spindle feels very appropriate. However, if the Morai and the Moon Sisters are so aptly linked, then this implies that all three Moon Sisters, Istaroth included, had some level of control over time, or different aspects of it. For example, perceived time, absolute time, and maybe moons. Given that Dainsleif mentions the Loom of Fate operation in regards to the Abyss Order's plans to rebel against the heavens, the connections between the three goddesses spinning out the literal fates of mankind on their spindle feels very appropriate. However, if the Morai and the Moon Sisters are so aptly linked, then this implies that all...
Are you saying the Moon Sisters would be Morai, essentially the ones we fate?
All three Moon Sisters, Istaroth included, had some level of control over time, or different aspects of it.
There are actually
For example,
three.
Perceived time, absolute time, and maybe, I don't know, space-time, who knows? But Istaroth being described as the measure of 1,000 winds sounds similar to the second fate's role as the one who measures the lifespan of a mortal, assuming the wind and the thread are interchangeable terms anyway. That said, seeing as the three Moon Sisters were said to change their posts every month, it's also possible that they rotated responsibilities and all possessed the same power, just executed them at different points in time. Now, if that's true, then there's no reason to force Istaroth to only be connected to the element of wind, as wind is simply time, which is shared by all three sisters, who may still yet possess mastery over one or more additional elements, right? Now, this is theoretical, obviously, but I want you to understand how I'm approaching the rest of this video,
here.
Which contains the actual theory. I promise, we're done with the overview now. Now, I want to start the theory portion of this video by reviewing the Parable of the Tree, which can be found in the book Before Sun and Moon, which I expect you to have read or at least be familiar with the contents of.
Like, if you haven't, go read it.
I'm going to review the Parable of the Tree
it's
here
needed.
because it provides some critical context for the rest of the theory, so at least pay attention to this part. This parable is actually quite short and simple. It tells the story of a gardener who loved a tree spirit
And
that
the tree
lived inside
would
of a tree that
suddenly
the king needed to cut branches from in order
That
to
was part of
build
his
his
trust.
palace. But the gardener didn't want to cut
So
down
like a
the
tree
tree because
eternity.
it takes like 500 years to grow. So he went to see a priest for help. That priest happened to be an incarnation of Istaroth, of all people, who gave the gardener instructions on how to clone the tree in an instant so the gardener could keep the tree while the king still gets the sacred wood that he needs to build his temple. Everybody wins. Now, there are 3 characters in this story: the king, the gardener, and the priest, who has already been identified as Istaroth, or at least an incarnation thereof. I actually ignored this parable for a really long time because I just didn't see what relevance it could possibly have. And then I happened to stumble upon a rather unusual myth. The Ethiopian myth of the rook bird, as found in the Kebra Nagast. Now, the rook bird is sometimes identified as the rock bird, an enormous mythological bird usually described as a bird of prey, like an eagle, and in the Kebra Nagast, it's this bird that is responsible for delivering a piece of sacred wood to King Solomon so that he could complete his temple. Coincidental, perhaps, but here's the thing. Nahida has been alluded to as a caged bird, both in visuals and in words. She even calls herself a little bird in the Golden Apple Archipelago event. Rukkhadevata, on the other hand, just reminds me a lot of a very lovely white peacock. It's mostly the dress, but still, bird vibes. And even if there are no bird vibes, I can't really ignore the fact that the rook and Rukkhadevata are spelt very similarly.
Wait, true.
Helyo really likes to do this kind of thing, so I'm not going to ignore it, even though it is kind of a tenuous connection. Now, both Rukkhadevata and Nahida are caretakers of a sacred tree, the Irminsul, which kind of makes them both gardeners, don't you think? And that means Rukkhadevata is symbolically both the gardener from the parable and the rook bird from the Ethiopian myth. You following me? So, if Istaroth is the priest and Rukkhadevata is the gardener, then who is the king? According to the myth, the king should be King Solomon, and oddly enough, King Solomon has a lot in common with King Deshret, both being kings of the desert nation.
Wait, what would that mean with the tree? Parable of the tree.
In myth, you following me? So, if Istaroth is the priest and Rukkhadevata is the gardener, then who is the king? According to the myth, the king should be King Solomon, and oddly enough,
wait, what? Let me go back to that legend of the rock bird, so I can get all the details.
Kebra Nagast. Now, the rook bird is sometimes identified as the rock bird, an enormous mythological bird usually described as a bird of prey, like an eagle, and in the Kebra Nagast, it's this bird that is responsible for delivering a piece of sacred wood to King Solomon so that he could complete his temple. Coincidental.
That is what was mentioned in Parable of the Tree, right? Wait, let me just look it up. Just for Sun and Moon. I'll just go check the Genshin wiki for that specific chapter so I can read it again, partially. Not really read, but just take a look at it. Here it is. Go and cut the branches of spirit tree down. So that's why it would essentially quote unquote need the wood. That would be the king. The king was the incarnation of the primordial one. But then the priest would be Istaroth. And then why would Nahida be connected to the primordial one? I'll keep going, see if there's anything else. Maybe
You to have red nations of prey, like an eagle, and in the Rukkhadevata, on the other hand, just reminds me a lot of a very lovely white peacock. It's mostly the dress, but still, bird vibes. And even if there are no bird vibes, I can't really ignore the fact that the rook and Rukkhadevata are spelt very similarly. Hoyo really likes to do this kind of thing, so I'm not going to ignore it even though it is kind of a tenuous connection. Now, both Rukkhadevata and Nahida are caretakers of a sacred tree, the Irminsul, which kind of makes them both gardeners, don't you think? And that means Rukkhadevata is symbolically both the gardener from the parable and the rook bird from the Ethiopian myth. You following me? So, if Istaroth is the priest and Rukkhadevata is the gardener, then who is the king? According to the myth, the king should be King Solomon, and oddly enough, King Solomon has a lot in common with King Deshret, both being kings of the desert nations.
Might be to do with the south of the Scarlet Sands,
temples, but also captured Jinn in bottles and sealed them with their seal. So, if Rukkhadevata is the gardener and Deshret is the king, then there is only one person left who can play the role of priest Istaroth, and that is the goddess of flowers. Yes, I am actually making the claim that the goddess of flowers is Istaroth, the god of time, or at least one of the 3 gods of time, depending on whether or not you share my view from the first section. If you're not convinced or a little confused, that's okay.
Wasn't she a Seelie?
Reasoning in due time. Time puns. But let's take a closer look at the goddess of flowers and her relation to Istaroth, just to get started. The goddess of flowers was very close to both King Deshret and Rukkhadevata, co-ruling the nation of Sumeru alongside of them, but she was significantly older than both of her friends.
Alright, I'll hear the theory afterwards then.
Remember the arrival of the second throne, as well as the fall of the Seelies, even going so
yeah,
far
she did have memories of that.
I
think what was in the artifact said that was kind of sus about it.
Law says that after this disaster, the goddess of flowers was cast aside by heaven. Her magnificent vessel was like a savage
was alive during the war,
being punished in the same way as her former kin. Her former kin, who were identified as the Seelies, were stripped of their minds, which is why they now have the form of these ghostly little husks that you see all around
stripped of their minds. So that's why, yeah.
Even then, the goddess of flowers continued to be described as a beautiful woman with incredible knowledge of secret things and a mastery over the power of dreams. But what I find most fascinating about the goddess of flowers is the story of her arrival in the desert, for that's where she landed when she was cast out of heaven. It's said that the gravel tore at the soles of her feet and she wandered the desert for 72 nights as the bloods that spilled from the wounds of her feet formed rivers, and in those rivers would blossom, quote, night blue water lilies. This descriptor should sound familiar because it matches the Nilapala lotus, aka the lunar lotus.
There's lore in that?
A water lily that only blooms at night. I know we usually associate the goddess of flowers with Parisaras, but those actually came later on. It's only lilies in the early days. Now let me draw your attention to another myth that can be found in the craftable Moonpiercer Spear. The legend states that before the birth of the Aranara, there were Seelies, and there were also 3 sisters who would leave their pearl-colored palace to roam the desert, and Nilapala lotuses would bloom at their feet. These sisters are undoubtedly the Moon Sisters, because the legend goes on to describe the death of 2 moons and the grief of the 3rd sister who would never leave her palace again. And wherever the dust of the 2 shattered moons landed on the earth, Nilapala lotuses also bloomed. So isn't it strange that these lunar lotuses would bloom at the feet of a mere Seelie survivor? Because that's not
saying that she's
to be a thing anywhere else. And what's more, there was an entire
Are you suggesting that the goddess of flowers would be a shade of the primordial one? 72 nights, and there's 72 demons of the lesser key of Solomon? Interesting. I'm guessing that's just a coincidence, but I'll see if there's any more points towards that.
This would bloom at the feet of a mere Seelie survivor, because that's not actually stated to be a thing anywhere else. And what's more, there was an entire race born from these lotuses, a race that considered the goddess of flowers their mistress and maybe even their mother or their queen. This race is known as the Jinn. The Jinn are kind of curious because unlike Aranara, who
Wait, actually, I've never heard of that.
Is that children of a god,
the
they
thing
have
Doria has?
in common with a race we've already talked about, the Seelies.
There's more of them?
They're described very similarly, both being rather human in shape, but with very pale coloring, like white hair, very pale white skin, that kind of thing, right? Like Paimon. Now, notable Jinn in the books like The Shepherd and the Magic Bottle are described as having little golden bell shape, but with very pale coloring, like white hair, very pale white skin, that kind of thing, right? Like Paimon.
I just think.
Now, notable jinn in the
I'll
books like
continue.
The Shepherd and the Magic Bottle are described as having little golden bells dangling from their feet and silver coins on their wrists. This
Okay, that would not be
description also
Paimon yet.
seems to fit something like a Kathak dancer. This dance stems from India, but was heavily influenced by Persian music and choreography. It's quite unique because of its incorporation of percussive footwear in the form of bells. While the dancer connection is a little bit tenuous here, it's noteworthy because Seelies were known for singing, and singing and dancing are intrinsically linked. Plus, the bells that the jinns wore might make a similar little jingling noise like that of a floating Seelie when you chase them.
Yeah,
but
that does
the Flower
happen.
Paradise Lost also describes the jinn as a race that sings, so regardless of the dancer thing, the Seelies and the jinn had this in common. Also worth noting that Lilufar, a noteworthy jinn, has been referred to as a fairy, and Seelies are fairies. In Chinese, at least, that would be the literal translation. I mean, in English, too, they're also fairies, since a Seelie is just what you call a Welsh fairy, but I digress. You get the idea. Now, in the previous video, I pitched the idea that the primordial one is basically like a biblical god, while the 4 shades are his archangels. That means that the Seelies would be angels of the lowest rank or sphere. And since we established that 3 of the shades must be the Moon Sisters, that implies that the Moon Sisters were also angels. Well, archangels. But an archangel is still a type of angel, right? And if the goddess of flowers is indeed a moon sister and calls the fallen Seelie her former kin, then that would explain why the goddess of flowers was strong enough to maintain her physical form while the rest of her kin perished while still being the same type of being. She was just a higher ranked angel. Anyway, after the jinn were born from these lunar lotuses that sprung at the feet of the goddess of flowers, most of them ended up living together with the goddess of flowers in the eternal oasis. But many of them who strayed from this haven were discovered by a young king Deshret, who studied them like a curious child and captured them in silver bottles that he would then mark with his seal. Later on, he would meet the goddess of flowers and they would found the city of Ai-Kanam, also known as the city of the Moon Maiden. It's an interesting name, perhaps a reference to the goddess of flowers' identity. Them who strayed from this haven were discovered by a young king Deshret, who studied them like a curious child and captured them in silver bottles that he would then mark with his seal. Later on, he would meet the goddess of flowers and they would found the city of Ai-Kanam, also known as the city of the Moon Maiden. It's an interesting name.
I think that was in the artifact set. Might have been. I remember a place.
Okay, too soon. But let's set her aside for now and focus on King Deshret. Or maybe I should call him King Solomon, because it's in their relationship that would mean start to understand why I call.
When did the goddess of flowers die, actually? Was it 500 years ago? Do we know? Do we have a date? Because that might actually be useful if we find that out.
The goddess of flowers is.
I don't remember if we have a date on that.
The biblical King Solomon was very, very blessed and a wise king, but he was best known for 2 things, I think, in modern times. The construction of the Temple of Solomon and the capturing of the jinn in jars, preventing their escape by marking the jars with his seal. The thing is, these 2 things are very closely connected because Solomon essentially enslaved the jinn and coerced them into constructing his temple alongside the normal human laborers. It's funny because not only did King Deshret capture Genshin's jinn in silver bottles marked with his seal, but he also had
I think they are based on Solomon then.
Granted, Deshret had certainly
at least 1,000. Okay, it might be different then.
Solomon did. But that's understandable because in the case of Solomon,
that shirt's definitely based off Solomon then, it seems,
that
though.
Were kind of torturing his workers and stuff.
Wait, sorry.
And the names of these demons.
I hear that?
The seal, but he also had them build portions of his mausoleum. Granted, Deshret had certainly treated the jinn way better than Solomon did.
Yeah.
But that's understandable because in the case of Solomon, his jinn were actually demons that were kind of torturing his workers and stuff. And the names of these demons you will probably be quite familiar with, as they are listed in the Ars Goetia's Lesser Key of Solomon, and they are the same names used by the current gods of Teyvat. Notably...
Wait, they're connected to... Oh wait, the Lesser Key of Solomon, right? Why would Deshret be on top of that, then? Does Deshret have any more important connection to it?
Morax,
to
Barbados,
everyone's gods?
Arcosius, Havris, Beelzebul, Baal, you get the idea. Now consider this. If the jinn considered the goddess of flowers their mistress, then that basically makes her their queen, right? And if the goddess of flowers was a consort of King Deshret, then that should make him the king of the jinn by proxy. This is fitting because his other name is Al-Amar, and that's actually the name of one of the 7 jinn kings listed in the Book of Wonders. And if you dig a little deeper, you'll discover that the angel associated with Alamar is called Samiel, which should sound pretty familiar because that's the name of the wall of Samiel that separates the desert from the forest, right? And coincidentally, all three characters, Deshret, Solomon, and Samiel, suffered a great folly, or a fall from grace, however you want to put it.
Forbidden
now,
knowledge
Deshret and
too.
Samiel both participated in a rebellion against God, as per the Book of Enoch in Samiel's case. While Solomon's
King is an incarnation of the primordial one on the purple of the tree. Yeah, but would that actually be King Deshret? Would the incarnation be King Deshret? I mean, I don't know if he ever... Like, would he ever really reincarnate? Somehow? I don't know how that would work. If it is, I guess it would explain a lot of the connections to the real world lore. But if it isn't, maybe it's based off something else. I'm not entirely sure. But if it is, yeah, it would explain why it'd be so important in, like, based on the world lore.
Suffered a great
real world lore.
Or a fall from grace, however you want to put it. Now, Deshret and Samiel both participated in a rebellion against God, as per the Book of Enoch in Samiel's case, while Solomon's fall from grace was attributed to his worship of a foreign goddess. Incidentally, Deshret's rebellion
went
was
insane
only made
there.
possible with the support of the goddess of flowers. And it just so happens that the goddess of flowers has a fair bit in common with the foreign goddess that Solomon worshipped. And her name was Astarte. Astarte is a Canaanite goddess of war, healing, and royalty, and she's often completely interchangeable with the Akkadian goddess Ishtar and the Mesopotamian Inanna. While neither are moon goddesses, they are all commonly depicted with crescent moons turned upright over their heads like a pair of horns. Coincidentally, or not, the goddess of flowers is also described as horned if Nilu's outfit, which is based on the goddess, is even remotely reliable. Even if it's not a moon reference, the horn connection still functions, as Astarte was often shown riding a bull.
Wait, where does this Astarte come from?
And her name was Astarte. Astarte is a from grace was attributed to his worship of a foreign goddess. Incidentally, Deshret's rebellion was only made possible with the support of the goddess of flowers. And it just so happens that the goddess of flowers has a fair bit in common with the foreign goddess that Solomon worshipped.
Where does this foreign goddess come from? I'm confused already. Oh, it's Solomon. We're not talking about Deshret. Okay.
And
never
her
mind.
Name was
I was a bit
Astarte.
confused because I thought we were
Astarte
directly
is
talking
a
about
Canaanite
Deshret. And
goddess
like,
of
what happened
war,
with
healing,
Deshret? I
and
thought it was
royalty,
just...
and she's often
Okay, I get it now.
completely interchangeable with the Akkadian goddess Ishtar
Talk
and
about
the
Solomon, not
Mesopotamian
Deshret yet.
Inanna. While neither are moon goddesses, they are all commonly depicted with crescent moons turned upright over their heads like a pair of horns. Coincidentally, or not, the goddess of flowers is also described as horned if Nilu's outfit, which is based on the goddess, is even remotely reliable. Even if it's not a moon reference, the horn connection still functions, as Astarte was often shown riding a bull, having one pull her chariot, or in some myths, wearing bull horns to emphasize her sovereignty. Astarte is also a part of a very powerful trio of Canaanite goddesses, the other two being Anat and Asherah, potentially the other two moon sisters in this scenario. Asherah is actually very interesting because she's associated with the tree of life.
I know what it's something to think about, yeah.
Half tree herself, but
that explains to Solomon why it'd be so important if Deshret was really based on that.
In the form of Ishtar, she becomes associated with the morning and evening stars, and if you watch a previous video, you'll know why that's important. But in addition to that...
Wait, who's associated with that? Sorry, I missed that for a second.
Potentially the other two moon sisters in this scenario. Asherah is actually very interesting because she's associated with the tree of life and is technically half tree herself, but that feels like a theory to tackle for another day. Now, in the form of Ishtar, she becomes associated with the morning and evening stars. And if you watch previous video, you'll know why
that be a connection
important.
to the moon sister?
But in addition to that, the symbol of this morning star is often called the Star of Ishtar, which is ironic because this star is the shape that Deshret takes in the flashbacks that we see of him. And it's also the star that we see on the chests of the Abyss Order, the Dark Serpent Knights, and on the military uniforms of the Conrian soldiers like Halfdan.
Interesting.
Food for thought. And
They
later
are
in
similar,
history, Astarte's name became the foundation for the demon that's found in the Lesser Key of Solomon, who worshipped Astarte, that became known as Astaroth, who is also the basis for the name Istaroth. And let me just take on the
wait.
chest.
So we're talking about Solomon worshipping Astarte, right? Foreign goddess.
The Abyss Order, the Dark Serpent Knights, and on the military uniforms of the Conrian soldiers like Halfdan. Food for thought. And later in history, Astarte's name became the foundation for the demon that's found in the Lesser Key of Solomon, who worshipped Astarte, that became known as Astaroth.
I'ma just keep going. I need more info. How would this be connected to Solomon?
Who is also the basis for the name Istaroth. And let me just take this one step further. We've already established that the Primordial One is a biblical god, the Seelies are angels, the Moon Sisters are shades of the Primordial One, and the shades are therefore archangels, right? Now, while there can be up to 10 named archangels in the biblical canon, 4 are particularly noteworthy. Those 4 are Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel. And it just so happens that Uriel goes by another name, Istrael. Are you following
Istaroth?
me? Astarte is Astaroth. Istrael is Istaroth. Yes? No? Also just Ishtar? I guess I could have just gone with that. But wait, hold up. You're probably wondering why I'm using these demon and angel names interchangeably. And that would be because angels and demons are essentially the same type of entity. In fact, traditionally, most demons are either fallen angels or descendants of fallen angels. But again, another theory for another time. But this realization is important because it means that Istaroth is a demon name and Uriel is an angel name, or Israel is an angel name. The demon name is there because she was cast out of heaven and is therefore a fallen angel.
Which, actually, during that war, if Istaroth survived, she would probably be cast out of heaven, either purposely, which I don't think so, or probably fled. This actually adds up. Okay, continuing.
And if you're not convinced of the whole Archangel thing, let me throw you something else. You remember how I said Istaroth is also called the Thousand Winds and that I kind of wanted to push the idea that there may be other elements involved here? Well, I would like to propose that she also has the power over water. See, the goddess of flowers has far more water associations than wind associations.
Yeah.
Rivers sprung from her feet, her domain was an eternal oasis, and water flowed from her sleeves, and she's also the god of prophecy. And if the connection between prophecy and water confuses you, then let me reintroduce you to our pal, Mona, who, interestingly enough, displays a star of Ishtar and a crescent moon in her charged attack.
Wait.
Weird.
That's symbol. The same one in Deshret.
Anyway, Mona practices hydromancy, a form of fortune-telling that relies on the stars. This works by a complex process of combining the reflections of water with that of her scryglass. She interprets these reflections and turns them into prophecies of fate. Which is funny, seeing as I started this video by connecting the 3 Moon Sisters to the Greek fates, don't you think? Now, you can always see Mona's scryglass in her idle animations, but during Unreconciled Stars, we actually got to solve a puzzle that utilized the large version of this same scryglass. And the best part about this is that the Latin characters can now be translated using this common key that I swiped from the wiki.
And what does it say?
The text in the middle of the scryglass translates into something like, "From the height of the light in the light of the great God, that he poureth out the elements in the minds of."
What? Great God is from what one?
Sounds a bit like a spell or maybe a prayer. It's not that important beyond establishing the concept of a singular god rather than Genshin's polytheistic gods. Perhaps it's a reference to the Primordial One being a god.
Yeah, I think that was what I was thinking.
The inner ring is much simpler. It's just 4 letters that translate directly into NSEW, which is quite obviously referring to the cardinal directions. This may interest those of you who watched the first video in this series where we connected the Hexenzirkel, of which Mona is a member, to the Adventurers Guild, which uses a compass rose as its logo. But this also has a deeper meaning now. But to understand it, we need to be able to translate the outermost ring, which mostly reads like gibberish. It's like BLE.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else.
No, that's not a cipher. Trust me, it's just random letters. Or is it?
Huh?
If you start at the letter G, you might notice that there are 4 groups of 3 letters. They are GBL, URL, MKL, and RPL. And
Is
if
that
you've
something
been paying
important?
attention, you should immediately recognize these as the names of the Archangels, abbreviated. GBL for Gabriel, URL for Uriel, MKL for Michael, and RPL for Raphael. And these 4 archangels specifically are referred to as the angels of the 4 directions in Christian theology. So now the innermost ring makes sense, being the 4 cardinal directions. There's even a more common bedtime prayer that solidifies this connection.
Each archangel?
And it goes something like this. To my right, Michael, and to my left, Gabriel. In front of me, Uriel, and behind me, Raphael. And over my head, God's presence through his Holy Spirit. Now, listen, I am not actually suggesting that the Hexenzirkel is a group of lunar goddess worshipping witches running a worldwide guild for some unknown purpose or anything, but don't you think it's a little interesting that one of their primary forms of divination appears to be connected to the goddess of flowers? It seems to me that divination, or knowledge of a future time, is a reasonable ability for the god of time to possess, don't you? Okay, so basically this whole theory boils down to this. Rukkhadevata is the rook bird that delivered sacred wood or Irminsul branches to King Deshret, who is likened to King Solomon. Both kings ruled over the Jinn and had them assist in the construction of their temples. King Deshret was infatuated with the goddess of flowers, who has a lot in common
the goddess of flowers would be one of the moon sisters, right?
With the goddess Astarte, who King Solomon worshipped, and both goddesses led to the downfall of their respective kings. Astarte is basically synonymous with Ishtar, and the combination of these 2 names form the basis of the name Astaroth or Istaroth, who we know of as the god of time. The goddess of flower also has traits in common with the moon sisters via the Nilapala lotuses and the birth of the Jinn, who strongly resemble the Seelies, of which the moon sisters and the goddess of flowers claim kinship with. Seelies and the Moon Sisters appear to be based on angels and archangels respectively, the latter specifically being Uriel or Israel, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, although one of these is not a moon sister but instead the sun, which could be Phanes, just saying. The Moon Sisters also share traits with the Morai, also known as the Greek Fates, which means that it's possible that
there's
all
different
3
possibilities
sisters
here then.
are gods of time, and not just Istaroth. In addition, the art of divination to determine someone's fate is attributed to the Hexenzirkel, implying that the Hexenzirkel has connections to the Moon Sisters, especially since Mona's scryglass seems to identify them by name. And that is why I think the goddess of flowers is Istaroth. And this is also where I originally planned to launch into a long discussion about Enochian literature and how it connects to forbidden knowledge, the fall of angels, and Teyvat's current predicament, but in light of several new revelations brought about by the lore in patch 3.3, this section is going to be its own video, so stay tuned for the finale of this 3-part, but actually for...
I don't know. Why, if the goddess of flowers would have died, why would we have heard that about the vase? Because I'm pretty sure that was Istaroth. I think Istaroth is different. The connections between Deshret and Solomon, though, those are rather interesting. I think that's definitely worth looking into. Like, I personally took quite a few things from this theory. Namely, the Jinns. I actually had no idea about, I think that was actually mentioned in Dory's thingy. But between Deshret and Solomon, I personally think I might look into it later. I think there's also the artifacts in the game. That was rather interesting. She is time. Yeah, she would have a connection with time. That is what we assumed here. But she'd have to be alive. Like, we know she died. Also, what about Venti? Venti's also, quote-unquote, one of the 1,000 winds. I think there's a lot more to it. I'm not entirely sure about that one, but yeah. What's the theory you had, by the way?
Just saying.
Wes had to think about the Morai.
Angels and archangels respectively, the latter specifically being Uriel or Israel, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, although one of these is not a moon sister but instead the sun, which
wonder why hydromancy would be connected to. And Makoto talked with us even after her death on a story quest. Yeah, that did. I think that was part of Makoto's consciousness, though, right? Because she stored her consciousness in the sword. I don't think that was about time itself, but rather the sword that stored Makoto's consciousness all along, but only when she was able to fully release the true power of the Musono Itotachi by understanding Makoto's ideals would that consciousness ever be released and slowly fade away. Kind of like how we had Ishin. Kazuo's story quest, the weapon itself had a soul. So basically you can essentially infuse, I mean, we also had the, what do you call it? There's also another instance. The plane of Euthymia is also another scenario where essentially consciousness, a realm of consciousness, was stored inside a weapon. So we had that situation 3 times. I think that was just like the last remnants before Makoto died. She stored her entire consciousness, her dying consciousness, inside the sword. That's why it also didn't last very long, because slowly after talking with A, she eventually did have to disappear. So I think that's just about the consciousness itself and realm of consciousnesses being able to be stored in physical objects. Kind of like how also in the Amigo story quest, the souls of those spirits who died, I forgot their name, yokai, could actually possess people, which we saw with the Traveler. And it was higher power who A thinks that played a part in it. I think that specifically said Istaroth. Like, it was literally right there in the story quest. I don't know if you saw it. The higher power, and then with slightly like lower letters, it said Istaroth. Yeah, that was the first time we heard about Istaroth, aside from before Sun and Moon. And then I'm pretty sure that was Istaroth, though. I guess we can't tell you, that is just speculation, but I'm pretty sure that was. In the Scaramouche Archon quest, we also saw a voice talk with us about time and fate, and I think that might have been Istaroth. But Istaroth has talked to us like through several amount of time. If Istaroth died at a certain point in time, while she does have control over time, she would still die, right? I guess if she died in the future, like nothing, she wouldn't have control over time beyond that, right? That would still apply. Or would it not? Because we know the goddess of flowers died, unless dying wasn't really the truth. Wasn't that quest that we heard about? Oh, I already read that. I also don't think, like, there's also the theory about Paimon being the god of time. I used to believe that. I don't longer do. But, and I wonder who else would Istaroth be. I feel like there's a deeper connection with Venti that we also can't forget. But the goddess chose to die. Wait, do we know when that happened? I actually didn't hear that detail. Do you have an artifact set or something that I can read? Like where the info was? Hold on, let me put some music. So it's not just silence. Perfect BGM, okay. I'm actually looking for it. Hold up. Let me try to find it. If you can find info about that. Nothing vibes the goddess of time, but I think she's one of the Moon Sisters. Yeah, I think that is definitely possible. I mean, the main reason I don't think Paimon is the goddess of time is because of the situation with the current the last Archon quest. But the Moon Sisters, I think definitely. Like, there's definitely something up about Paimon. I don't trust her. Like, there's definitely something up. Like, she's not just a usual being. I think she could definitely be one of the Moon Sisters. I guess she would have lost her power during the calamity or something. Maybe that's why she took on a new form. Goddess of Flowers Genshin Wiki. Following the die due to the malice of the burning sun and yellow. So wait, where is this? Let me check the weapon ascension materials. Oasis Garden Morning. Ooh, I haven't read that. Hold up. Ooh, wait, there's an entire artifact set about her. Okay, we got some stuff to read. Let me hide it. There we go. So this is about the Goddess of Flowers. The sensor, oh, there's also info about the gene here, so that's where that came from. Mistress of Flowers and the Oasis joined hands with the Lord of the Deserts, which would be King Deshret, and built Al-Qanun, which would also mean City of the Moon Maid. Oh, so that's where that was. In the ancient language of the Jinn. Later, however, it was said that the Lord of Flowers died due to malice of the burning sun and yellow sand. Malice of the burning sun. If we actually took those, the sun and the moons as actually the incarnations of the primordial one, then the theory about Venti and the three shades possibly being on the second throne side at the moment would actually make sense. If the sun was actually quote unquote alive and was one of the shades of the primordial one, that might make sense why you would have malice of the burning sun and yellow sand. That makes sense. And Moonlight Silver Gem Disc lost its original glad purple, as also associated with the moon. If I remember right, on the moons crumbled to dust, fell into the sea. One of the moons in that book. One left and the corpse of one is left hanging on the sky. Yeah, that we know. I know about the other one. I haven't actually looked too much into the book. I haven't read the book itself. I've only heard about it in a lot of. So let me actually go look for it about the Moon Sisters. It also talks about the morning stars. According to legend, the Moon Sisters are older than Morax himself is 6,000 years old. They were the sovereigns of the night sky who dwelled in the lunar palace and rode through the heavens in a silver carriage. Sovereignty was held by one sister at a time, switching places 3 times a month. 3 sisters were all in love with the morning stars. Okay. And it is said that their love for the morning stars was equal to the affection between the sisters. At some point, the lunar palace was also a union of a Seelie ancestor and an outlander, with the moon sister as witnesses. An outlander? 30 days later, the calamity that overturned the heavens and earth descended on the world. The lovers went on a self-imposed exile and attempted to flee, but disaster caught up to them, separated for eternity, and that their memories wiped. Wait. Wait, I know this is a really cracked theory, but what if the Seelie was the Abyss sibling, and the Outlander was the Traveler? And because of whatever the Moon Sisters did, they looked kind of similar, but that's why the Abyss sibling would have information recorded and the Traveler would not. Okay, that's why they tried to flee. That's a really cracked theory, but just think about it. Alright, let me read the chat. Found the scene, Paimon was fished out of the water. That is true. Let me actually look for the details on the deaths. We can find it here. Turned on each other. Powered by the morning stars, Sun Chariot. Creating the chasm and... Ooh, wait! As in the meteor. That they felt a chasm. There's a lot of stuff in here. Holy heck. Okay, well, let me try to actually find it. I'm getting sidetracked. That's what Genshin lore does to you. It's just a lot of stuff, and it's cool. So shall have found the chasm repaired to by the tribes who live there and eventually return to the heavens. That's something I haven't heard about. Was it in the Moonlight Forest? Wait, where's the information, by the way? Trying to look for it. Only one of their pale corpses now remains. Which means it's probably not even like... Is this saying that they actually all died? Only one of their pale corpses. So yeah, we don't actually know if it was during the calamity 500 years ago, but I think it's kind of assumed. Yeah, we also have a moon there, which the moon is clearly the visible. Yeah, that is true. Because of the new lore, we also had to look on the fairy tales differently. Yeah, they could also be hiding the truth. Like, they could be hiding a truth in a way that they wouldn't actually know, and so it wouldn't be edited. So like, I actually like this one over here, the Moonlit Bamboo Forest, might actually be very important. Like, this might actually be really important. Yeah, this I'm not going to read this on stream. I've personally never read any books except for Before Sun and Moon. But I'll try to find an audiobook on the internet, and if I can't, I might just, I guess read it over time, but I'm personally not going to read it in one day. But this might actually be extremely important. Just a feeling, because of the Moon Sisters and the thing we got about fairy tales possibly being used to hide the truth that would otherwise be erased if they, in that situation, if it ever came to pass. as in like fleeing from Irminsul, or even before the Archon course. Yeah, they way older than Morax. It's very likely that maybe even related to the primordial one. Actually, in that situation. In that situation, maybe they really are the four shades of the primordial one. Maybe one of them is Istaroth. Actually, that kind of points to that theory that Istaroth is one of the Moon Sisters. Paimon, if Paimon was the other one, then the other one would be the one in the Spiral Abyss. Then we'd have 3 of them. I wonder if the one in the Spiral Abyss could actually mean something else. Then there's also the Walking Moon, so I guess we can't really know if one of them is something else. I don't know if the Walking Moon is canon or not. Let's try to read that list eventually. Walking Moon, hold up. I gotta actually go look for it. There's no lore. There's no lore on the Walking Moon, at least not on the wiki. Is there no description? There is no description. Oh wait, there is. A ritual prayer recited on the rising of the first new moon to ask for the moon blessing in form of wealth and good fortune. For the birth of the new moon, you shall pray for the first ever new moon in Teyvat. So it's the first one you've seen here. Which means it's the only one alive. Okay, I don't think there's gonna be important lore here. I think it just refers to the moon that is currently alive. That we see on the sky. I mean, I wouldn't say alive, I guess, but the corpse at least is definitely there because we can see it. But the one that we see. The Pale Prince of the Six Pygmies. The Abyss Order was after this book. Yeah. I've actually seen a theory on Reddit that's the Pale Princess would be that Tsaritsa was eventually cursed, and the Ninth Mother of the Abyss would be the true ruler of the Abyss, so it wouldn't be Lumine. It would be the so-called Ninth Mother of the Abyss. And there was also this one theory that the 6 Pygmies would be 6 Archons, the remaining ones, but it kind of sounded off for me. But I think the part about the Tsaritsa would essentially mean that the Tsaritsa would have been corrupted, and while we can't have any information on that, it's certainly interesting to consider. But it also provides info on the Ninth Mother of the Abyss, which I guess would be kind of connected to the Abyss Order, if that truly was I guess the ruler of the Abyss. Then I kind of wonder why they would be looking for it if they knew about it. Maybe there is more to it. But yeah, that is also another really important book. The other acts actually aren't available in the game, but you can read them in the wiki via leaks. So I probably shouldn't be sharing that book on stream, but you can read it if you want. Just gotta go look for it. Not in game. But yeah, there's that theory about the Tsaritsa being the Pale Princess. Alright, there doesn't seem to be any lore here, so let me just return back to where I was about the moons. Okay. We don't know if they're actually called that. Maybe they actually changed different names so that they wouldn't be erased if there ever came a time where they were released. They were, sorry, deleted from Irminsul. This thing is definitely sus, though. It's a very cracked theory, but I feel like this could be Aether and Lumine. Lumine would be a Seelie. I guess from the perspective of Lumine being the Abyss sibling. But yeah, the Abyss sibling would be a Seelie ancestor, and the Outlander would be us. It's very far-fetched, but you know, just 30 days later, Calamity had overturned the heavens. The lovers went on a self-imposed exile and attempted to flee. like how they tried to escape from the world, but disaster, sustainer, caught up to them. Just separated for eternity. You know, 500 years. Though I guess that didn't work out because the seal was eventually cleared, and that their memories wiped, which is rather interesting. I wanna. Did that really happen? Does the child remember everything or not? Or is it something else about like their time in Teyvat was wiped, so that's why they wouldn't remember about the lunar palace or anything else? The heartbroken Seelie withered away, but then why would they consider themselves as twins unless that was memory alteration? So there's that. It's a very far-fetched theory, but yeah, that's just something that came to my mind. I have a theory that the Princess Fischl is a descender, the true one, not Amy. If that was a fairy tale, hold up, let me go find it. By the way, I'm starting to get hungry, so I'm probably might BRB in a bit, but I'll be back. Let me just go find that book, though. Flowers for Princess Fischl, right? Here it is. I want to wait. Is it actually ever said what who the author is though? I feel like yeah, that's the thing that I don't think it is. For only one reason, the author is Mr. 9, which I do believe we know who it is. Is it Shang the Ninth? I think it is, right? Or was it? I might have been Xing Shou. Hold up. Do we know who the Ninth is? Oh, we don't know who the Ninth is. Oh wait, it's about the legend. Oh wait, no, we don't know who Mr. 9 is. Actually, no, we don't know who Mr. 9 is. No, never mind. Never mind what I just said. It's not Shang the Ninth. I think. Wait, maybe it is. German. I guess maybe it is Shang the Ninth. Mr. 9 again. Hold up. Is there any search here that we can do? Shang the Ninth. Do we have any information on him? On the books we wrote? Shang pawned off most of his beloved book, with the exception of the rare book, Legend of the Albert Alp. Why would he keep that book if he was the one who wrote it, I guess? Be the morning stars on the time of the moon sisters. Oh wait, there's the morning stars, right? I think that kind of debunks the theory I had. And it said that their love for the morning stars was equal to the affection between the sisters. I guess who are the morning stars here? And do we have any confirmation on who the morning stars were related here? I guess they could be this, but it sounds kind of odd, so I don't think it would be that would be the morning stars. And then there's the sunshine piloted by the morning stars. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, never mind what I just said. I don't think the morning stars is this. Gotta look further into the solar chariot, it seems. Was a star with a proud and agitated temper. While slumbered after his fall to the earth, reawakened during the Archon War. Sent a bloodshed war that filled the earth, leapt back into the sky. That was repaired by the genius healing the chasm, and then flew back to the sky. Flew back. Star of daybreak. Creating the chasm. Yeah, which also was 500 years ago. Nada proibiu de estar criando fairy tales que ninguém se lembra. Yeah. I don't think it's Chang the Ninth. Like, the Ninth could be Chang the Ninth, especially because of his German name. But if it is Mr. Nine is someone else, let's take that as a possibility. Like, let's take it as a quote-unquote fact, just for this theory. I'm not saying it's confirmed. That Mr. Nine is someone we don't know. It's not Chang the Ninth. We don't know anything about him. Like, it's confirmed that it is someone rather mysterious, and it is no one we know. And he would write Flowers of the Princess Fischl. And I heard about the Dreams of the Shattered Albert. There's a theory that I saw a title. I don't remember seeing the theory. About the Shattered Alberts being actually the nails, the celestial nails. Which is something that is kind of sus for someone to know, right? There's a lot to read. I'm definitely not reading this today. But there could be a connection here on who Mr. Nine is. If the actual official was a descender, and that tells the story of it, and if this is about the celestial nails, which I guess we'll have to look into it by reading this entire book. What if that then Mr. Nine was someone, let's say, important to the story in a way, but that would be a pen name, so that would not, of course, not be his real name. But yeah, this guy's kind of sus. I wonder what that would be. Alright, I think I'll be going for dinner. And yeah, I'll be back in around 20 minutes, possibly 25. But yeah, I don't actually might just end the stream here. You got any more theories, by the way? I think I'll be looking into the Shattered Albert. And what's the other book? Fischl. But I'd have to like leave that for another stream, because I mean I'd be reading books basically. Maybe Fischl is also the Pale Princess of the Six Pygmies. I don't know about that. I've actually read the Book of the Six Pygmies, but I don't remember very clearly. I know about the Night Mother. Hold up. I don't know if I should show this on stream. Faraway Land of Night. I think the Land of Night is the Abyss. I guess Land of Night. Wait a second. I think that's actually kind of mentioned in the book about Fischl. Am I being wrong here? Is that where your theory comes from? You might actually get a point. Hold up. I think it's this thing that's called something else, right? Is there any Night? King of the Night. Night Ravens. It could always be under different words, so we don't know entirely if it's referencing someone else. Is it German for summer night garden? What about? Because I know there's more. Where's that word? No. The Mighty Lord of the Robin. Is that just Raven? Night Raven? Night Ravens. Nemesis of we gotta translate German words. Eternal darkness. Dusk. The Menachreich is a realm of eternal night. Oh yeah, I think yeah, Fischl did mention that actually. I wonder if that they even are. Wait, the story about Fischl. They even if that was really something to hide the truth, then it could actually be a story about the abyss. Imanakrish being the abyss, eternal darkness, land of the night, maybe. Then I wonder who this Fischl character would be if that was related. So that's the Emperor's Door. Wait. That's the ending. Are you saying this is connected? Ted refused to answer this question, but the editor-in-chief said if I didn't, in which case my Mora would be on. Total work of art. Huh? That's just the author's rambling stuff. This is probably Yamiko, to be honest. But yeah, Yamiko, if Mr. 9 is sus, then Yamiko is sus, to be honest. At this rate. The Night of... That is in German. The Night of Princess Fischl. So I have 7 of common strength to stand for equal to Fischl. That's a lot of stuff. Legend of the Shattered Albert seems to be the future of the flowers of Princess Fischl. I actually heard the theory. Let me actually try to find it. Not that I'm going to watch it today, but I think I might have actually already seen it. Hold up. Legend of the Shattered Albert theory. Celestia. Let's see if I can find that theory. I'm pretty sure I saw once. Yeah. I don't know if I already watched this, but there was this theory over here. That was the theory I saw. I think I might have actually seen it. Partially.
However, the realms were reborn with life anew, and now the worlds are just no longer connected.
I'd say check out. I think Roosevelt already asked quite a few theories. Ooh, there's more actually. I'm definitely gonna check this guy out. I've actually already seen a few, like this one. Definitely check this guy out too, if you're interested. I think I'm gonna look over this series, probably off stream though. It's been a long stream today. But yeah, that I don't know if then the flowers of Princess Fischl will be connected, but if the Imanakrish, oh god, that hit me. We're not here to listen to Velobok music, okay? That kind of hit me. I wasn't expecting that. That just came out of nowhere. That was kind of louder too. Anyways, the music changed. Continuing. If the Kingdom of Eternal Night, Imanakrish, happens to be, let's say, a metaphor, you know, to not be raised from Irminsul, for the Abyss, then I guess Celestial Nails and Abyss could have a connection. Then that would make sense for it to want to be the future of the other. But there's just a lot of stuff that I guess we gotta look more into lore and stuff. that's a lot. But yeah. I'm definitely gonna be checking out the theory about celestial nails, though. I think I might have seen partially, but I guess I don't remember, at least. So I'll just watch it again. I think I'm gonna go for now. It's been a long stream. Thank you for being here, by the way. Thank you for the lore discussion. It was fun. I actually got to learn quite a bit, especially about Solomon and King Deshret. Got quite a few thoughts about it. And the Moon Sisters, actually. I think one of them is actually Istaroth, definitely. Which will be the one hanging over the sky right now. There's also the thing about the morning stars and the solar chariot. I actually gotta look into the solar chariot. That is rather... The solar chariot has a connection to the Moon Sisters, then... Also about the morning stars. I guess they kind of fought at the same time. The meteor in the chasm was 500 years ago. Then we had the two ones. Ether and Lamine also falling 500 years ago, so I guess they could be connected to the solar chariot too, the chasm meteor to be precise. Then I wonder if we can find more info about the people in the chasm that supposedly got it back to the sky. There's also that, which I don't know if we have any more info on that, but if we do, there's definitely more lore to be developed there. All right, I'm gonna be going for now. I don't know if I'll be streaming for the 29th. Probably not, but maybe I'll feel like streaming one day, and if so, I'll tell you on the Discord. So yeah, 29th is the next Honkai chapter, so I'm quite hyped about that. By the way, might be a bit late into 3.4 Genshin, but I will be getting there on late January when the chapter 34 ends. So yeah, until then, I think I'm gonna just be catching up on theories and stuff. And I'm personally taking a break from Genshin, even though, let me be real, I'm so hyped for Wanderer gameplay that I kind of want to return sometimes. But then again, I did say I'm taking a break, and I haven't even got enough days for the returnee bonus, so let me just wait. Like, let's... I'm trying not to log into Genshin one day. Like, I'm trying to, you know, take a break from it, but I want to play with Wanderer. I'm not saying a lot, but yeah, there's that. So definitely gonna be hyped about the return in late January, though. Until then, I'm definitely gonna be continuing. We gotta do the other collective miscellaneous too, though. So there's gonna be another video about that. Also about the VLV lore that I still want to look into. So that's essentially part 2 of the last stream. VLV lore and the collective miscellaneous. There's also the Nilo teaser and the Farzan demo that I haven't watched. And the Elysia Sweet Afternoon Tea, which is an 18-minute animation, which I haven't watched. And there was a smaller video about VLV. So yeah, that's gonna be for another show. I don't know if it's gonna be before the 29th. I think it's actually quite likely. There's gonna be one stream about that. Or it could also be in early January after the 29th. So we'll see. Thank you for coming, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time or on Discord. So see ya. And have fun with the lore. I'm definitely gonna be watching those series from Roosevelt as well. So yeah.